Chapter 2250. Can't you guys lend a hand? 1. In fact, he knew that Master Ning's words made sense. After all, it was not necessary for the 8 divine regions to attack together to deal with a few little snakes. Otherwise, the Divine Lord's estate would be alarmed. However, when he saw that the people in front of him were indifferent and were watching the show calmly, he couldn't help but vent his anger. Fuck. The Yao family had been almost reduced to ruins, but these people in front of him didn't even offer him a word of comfort. This fact made him feel extremely unbalanced. Otherwise, he wouldn't have wanted to find trouble with these people. But now, it seemed that not only was the effect minimal, but he also had to carefully smile. This really made him so depressed that he was about to vomit blood. However, he really couldn't offend all 7 of them at once, so he could only sulk in his heart. Seeing Master Yao's aggrieved look, Master Ning almost laughed in his heart. He naturally knew that his words had an effect. People like them had to consider too many aspects when doing things. Many times they couldn't do as they pleased, so sometimes he was very envious of Shui. At least, whatever Shui wanted to do, she didn't have to think about this and that. When it came to them, many things had to be done in private. To put it bluntly, they had too many things that could not be seen in the light. Thinking of this, the master of the Ning family said seriously, "Yao family head, I understand how you feel, and I also know that your Yao family has indeed suffered heavy losses this time. However, sympathy is sympathy, but there are some things that we still have to make clear." Was he looking for trouble? Hearing Master Ning's words, the Chung family's master and the others immediately straightened their backs and became energetic. The Yao family's master almost vomited blood when he saw them like this. Fuck. These people were definitely doing this on purpose. He had said so much just now, and even complaining couldn't make them so focused, but Old Man Ning's one sentence made them focus. Wasn't this clearly bullying? Although this was the truth, the head of the Yao family still told himself to endure it. He wanted to hear what the old man from the Ning family would say next. After deliberately pausing to scan the reactions of the people present, the master of the Ning family said with a faint smile, "Now that the Yao family's poisoning incident has been cleared up, it's time to discuss our compensation. In addition, we've already negotiated with those snakes that we won't interfere in the matter between you two and that they would give us the snake venom to refine into an antidote, but the sudden appearance of the Yao family's patriarch scared them away, so I think that the snake venom we need should be obtained by the Yao family's patriarch on our behalf. What do you think?" "We have no objections." After Master Ning finished speaking, the other 3 masters quickly expressed their opinions, and Master Yao, who didn't have time to express his opinion, was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood again. "You bastards! When those snakes attacked the Yao family, it was fine if they didn't help. After all, you had negotiated with them, and people all have selfish motives, so he could barely understand. However, when your deal was not completed, you actually blamed it on him, and even wanted him to take responsibility for it. This was a little too much. Or did he look like he was easy to bully? He would do whatever other people asked him to do?" The head of the Yao family thought to himself indignantly. He deeply felt that the fact that he was still able to hold back and not curse at these people or fight them showed that his demeanor was extraordinarily good. In a short moment, the Yao family head's heart was in turmoil, and a huge wave was formed. Anger and hatred intertwined, causing his face to be uncertain. When Lung Ruoxia saw this, she knew that this old man was extremely angry. However, she found it quite interesting. Thanks, these 8 families had gathered to discuss her matter, but she had not expected that this small matter would push the head of the Yao family to the opposite side of the other 7 families. She also didn't know if the Yao family's old man's previous intentions could be realized. She was really looking forward to it. He also wanted to see how the old man of the Yao family would achieve his goal. At this time, Master Ning saw that although Master Yao was very angry, he could still control himself and didn't jump up. He knew that this hadn't reached his bottom line. Instantly, he decided to work harder. Since Master Yao has no objections, then it's settled. The master of the Ning family said with a smile. When did I say I had no objections?" The head of the Yao family, who had been secretly cursing for a long time, suddenly woke up when he heard this and quickly said, "You haven't said anything for a long time. Didn't you agree? The master of the Ning family blinked innocently and asked with a pure face. Who said that? The head of the Yao clan said angrily. What's wrong? Are you trying to deny it? I knew you were always like this. But fortunately, we have so many witnesses this time. So you can't deny it. The master of the Ning family said with a smile. The expression on his face was as annoying as it could get, but he felt good about himself. When the head of the Yao family heard this, his face clearly darkened. He stood up from his seat with a whoosh and shouted. What do you mean by not acknowledging it? I didn't agree to it at all, okay? If you didn't agree, why didn't you say so earlier? You didn't even let out a fart. Who knows if you didn't agree? Old man Yao, it's not like we just got to know you today. Your performance just now was clearly a silent agreement. If there was something you didn't agree with, you would have strongly opposed it long ago. Why would you be so honest? So don't quibble, we have so many eyes watching. Seeing this, the patriarch of the Chung clan sighed softly and said, I was obviously making Master Ning so angry that he couldn't say anything. How was that a tacit agreement? The head of the Yao family roared in anger. If he had only been complaining in his heart just now, then the other party had taken his silence as consent without his consent. He couldn't bear it no matter what. Fuck. Where would the Yao family put their face if they continued to endure? However, the head of the Yao family obviously didn't want to offend the other 7 families, so he simply formed an alliance. He looked at the head of the Qi family with anger and said, Qi family head, you be the judge. Did I agree tacitly? They're clearly the ones who want to force this matter on me. How could I possibly agree to such a thing? Looking at Master Yao, who was looking at him expectantly, Master Qi had a headache. He really didn't want to get involved in this matter. Moreover, personally speaking, he was on Master Ning's side, but Old Man Yao wasn't easy to mess with. If he offended that old man too much, who knew when he would be stabbed in the back by that old thing? As he thought about this, the head of the Qi family laughed without saying anything and pretended to be deaf. Seeing him like this, the anger in the Yao family head's heart rose again. However, when he turned his gaze to the other 2 people, the 2 of them lowered their heads in unison. Just as he was about to speak, the heads of the Yu and Fan families even started snoring. This scene almost made him explode with anger. Chapter 2251. Can't you guys lend a hand? 2. However, Lung Ruoxia's feelings were the exact opposite of his. She was laughing very happily in her heart. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. What a bunch of old foxes. In order not to offend people, he even did such a thing. Sigh. If she had not seen it with her own eyes, Lung Ruoxia would never have believed that these people were the family heads of the 8 great divine regions. It was a little embarrassing. Not being able to find an ally anywhere, the head of the Yao family deeply felt that he had failed as a person. Then he wanted to play the emotional card, only to see his eyes shimmering. And then, slightly choked with emotion, he said to the head of the Ning family, Master Ning, I've always respected you, and we've known each other for so many years. Don't you know what kind of person I am? However, I really can't agree to those things you've said. Especially the matter of asking me to find those snakes and get their venom for you. Besides, didn't you guys already make a deal? Since they're so untrustworthy, I think you should go and settle the score with them. Don't let them go. Hearing this, the head of the Chung clan couldn't help but say, Old Man Yao, it's not that those snakes didn't keep their word. They were scared away by you. So you have the responsibility to retrieve the snake venom for us. We have no dissatisfaction with those snakes, so don't kill them with a borrowed knife. We are not that easy to order around. Patriarch Chung, that's not what I meant. I'm really thinking for you. You also know that I have a grudge against those snakes. How could they give me the snake venom? The head of the Yao family felt that the head of the Chung family was somewhat dissatisfied and hurriedly tried to remedy the situation. However, the head of the Chung family only rolled his eyes at him and ignored him. At this time, the master of the Ning family confirmed again. Yao family head, are you going to refuse our compensation? Or are you going to refuse to give us the snake venom? Or are you going to refuse both of them? I can give you appropriate compensation, but I will never agree to the snake's poison. When I see those snakes, I will definitely not be able to resist the urge to attack. If I accidentally kill the snake that poisoned me, I will not be able to get the snake's poison. The head of the Yao clan asked worriedly. Yao family head, don't forget that there are also people in your Yao family who have been poisoned. Furthermore, the poison in the Yao family is much more serious than the poison in our 4 families. You said that you were afraid that you would accidentally kill the poisonous snake. Don't tell me that you don't even care about the lives of your own clansmen? The master of the Ning family asked with a smile. That's right. You don't care about the Yao family anymore? Old man Yao, I think you'd better obediently accept this mission. Even if it's not for us, it's for the Yao family. The head of the Chung clan laughed evilly. The two of them echoed each other, and the head of the Yao family was speechless. Because he only cared about getting angry, he really forgot about the Yao family being poisoned. But then he thought about it, and felt that what they said was very reasonable. He really had to find those snakes. In that case, he had better agree. At the very least, he would be able to regain some of the impression he left in these people's hearts. After thinking this way, the head of the Yao family helplessly nodded his head, which could be considered as an agreement. Seeing that he had achieved his goal, the Chung clan's patriarch was in a great mood. However, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He was really an idiot. Since the result was the same, it would have been better if he had agreed earlier. They could have looked at him higher. But now, the position of the Yao family head in their hearts was simply as low as dust. Inwardly disdaining the head of the Yao family, the head of the Chung family continued. Since old man Yao has accepted the matter of the snake poison, shouldn't we discuss the issue of compensation now? Although old man Yao had said that it was compensation, the head of the Chung family had long decided to treat it as compensation. He couldn't let that old thing take advantage of the loopholes in the word game, or they would suffer a great loss. Although compensation and compensation were only one word apart, their meanings were completely different. The amount of compensation would definitely be huge and would satisfy them. However, the compensation, to put it nicely, would give them some money, but to put it bluntly, it was just to send off beggars. Therefore, the master of the Chung family, who had thought it through, had long made up his mind to not let this old thing take advantage of him. Thanks, it should be. The master of the Ning family nodded, and casually glanced at the master of the Yao family. Just this glance made the heart of the master of the Yao family beat wildly. He didn't know why, but he had a very bad feeling. The facts proved that his feeling was correct. Because as soon as the Ning family's master finished speaking, the Yao family's master saw the 4 of them each take out a piece of paper from their storage rings and hand it to him. Our compensation has already been prepared. Yao family head, please take a look. The master of the Ning family said with a smile. The feeling of robbing old man Yao was really good. He just didn't know how many good things this old man had in his hands, and whether it was enough for them to split. The head of the Yao family casually glanced at what was written on the paper, and his eyes immediately widened. This was the compensation they wanted? Did the 4 families come to an agreement? Although the things they wanted were different, they were definitely things from his treasure vault. Even if they didn't want everything, they would at least take up half of it. Looking at the things on the paper, he really wondered if they had been to his treasure vault. However, he was very confident in the safety of his treasure vault, so he knew that it was impossible. Then how do you explain the things on the paper? For a moment, the head of the Yao family was at a loss. He racked his brains, but he couldn't figure out what was going on. He didn't even know if he should be glad that they didn't take away all of his treasures. However, the things on the paper were enough to make his heart ache. Originally, he just wanted to give them some compensation. He didn't expect that these people would actually ask for such an exorbitant price. This made the anger in his heart that had just subsided a little surge again. Is this what you want me to compensate you for? After taking a few deep breaths, the head of the Yao family couldn't help but ask. Yup. Aren't we very kind? I didn't ask for too much. The head of the Chung family nodded his head vigorously, extremely obedient. This is considered little? The head of the Yao family gritted his teeth. Of course it's less, compared to what you gave to Shui. What we have is nothing. I say, old man Yao, could it be that you're reluctant to part with him? These things are just a drop in the ocean for you. Don't tell me you can't take them out. The head of the Chung clan seemed to have understood something. He blinked his eyes and asked in disbelief. Of course I can. The head of the Yao family gritted his teeth, but before he could finish, he heard the head of the Chung family pat his chest and say, It's all right. It was still all right. I'm afraid you can't take it out. At that time, I won't be able to answer to my clansmen. Don't you guys think that you're asking for a bit too much? The head of the Yao clan said viciously, as if he would bite if the Chung clan head and the others didn't dare to say much. However, the head of the Chung family was not afraid of him. He heard the Chung family head say with a very innocent and sincere face, We don't want much at all. Chapter 2252. Can't you guys lend a hand? 3. These words made Master Yao's face darken even more. Then he said ruthlessly, I can only agree to half of the compensation you ask for. To be honest, even half of it would hurt him, but he knew that if he gave too little, these people would definitely not agree. So he gritted his teeth and thought of it as spending money to avoid disaster. When the head of the Chung family and the others heard this, they were overjoyed, but they didn't show it on their faces. In fact, they had written so many things because of Old Man Ning's idea. In Old Man Ning's words, Old Man Yao would definitely haggle the price. If they asked for too little, they might get nothing. When they heard this, they felt that it was reasonable. Therefore, they had such a compensation that made the head of the Yao family grit his teeth and feel a deep pain in his heart. And the facts proved that Old Man Ning was right. It was only half of the compensation. It had already exceeded their expectations. It could be said that they were quite satisfied. However, they still pretended to be dissatisfied. With the Chung family head as their representative, they said very reluctantly, Old Man Yao, so many of our people were poisoned by your Yao family, yet you're only paying us half of what we're asking for. Isn't that a little too much? That's a lot. The head of the Yao clan said angrily. We want 2/3. The head of the Chung family pretended to haggle. I'll only give half. Do you want it or not? The head of the Yao family said with a look of indifference. Hearing him say this, the four of them looked at each other. In the end, they had no choice but to nod in agreement. When the head of the Yao family saw this, he felt extremely proud. He was the final victor. If these people wanted to take advantage of him, there was no way. However, if he knew that the other party was already very satisfied with just half of the compensation, he would probably vomit blood in anger. Seeing that the issue of compensation had been settled, the head of the Yao clan wanted to start discussing Lung Ruoxia's matter with them. However, the head of the Chung clan and the others demanded that he pay the compensation first. The Yao family head wouldn't allow them to go back on their word after viciously taking the items they wanted to compensate them with. Originally, discussing Lung Ruoxia's matter was the reason why he had invited these people here. However, because of the poisoning incident, he had not had the chance to discuss it. Now that the culprit had been found and the compensation to the four families had been paid, he had to take the opportunity to talk about Lung Ruoxia. Otherwise, wouldn't the price that the Yao family had paid be in vain? His heart was bleeding when he thought of the precious items that had left him. However, when the patriarch of the Chung clan heard his words, he couldn't help but say, Old Man Yao, you're not going to settle the score with those snakes and take back the snake venom we want, but you're still in the mood to discuss the matter of that little girl Schwerer. Your heart is really big. There are so many infected people in the Yao family who are still waiting for you to save them. As the head of the family, you can't let them down. Aren't you all the same, doing nothing all day? What right do you have to criticize me? The head of the Yao family roared, clearly not in a good mood. On the other hand, the head of the Chung family and the others, who had received quite a bit of compensation, were in a good mood and naturally didn't mind his tone. Then he heard the head of the Chung family say with a smile, How can we be the same as you? Although our family members are also poison, but it's much less severe than your Yao family's poison. Your Yao family's poison is contagious, and who knows if there will be more Yao family members infected. So no matter what, you should be more anxious than us. That's right, I suggest that you first cure the poison of the poisoned person. Then we can discuss other things. Otherwise, if the Yao family members find out, they will be disappointed in you as the head of the family. I don't think we should disturb you any further. We'll take our leave first. The master of the Yin family echoed. After he finished speaking, he stood up and was about to leave. Seeing this, the others also planned to leave. When the head of the Yao family saw this, he immediately became anxious. He hurriedly blocked their path and shouted, "None of you are allowed to leave before we finish discussing Lung Ruoxia's matter." Looking at the Yao family head's determined look, the Ning family head and the others were helpless. Just as they were hesitating about how to deal with it, they saw the ninth elder of the Yao family run into the living room, sweating. "Patriarch, something has happened to the first elder and the others." Elder Yaojiu couldn't care less about the presence of others as he spoke anxiously. What did they do? The head of the Yao clan couldn't help but frown at these words. They've been captured by the Azure Snake clan. Elder Yaojiu reported. He had also just received the news. Because he had been unable to contact the Great Elder and the others, he had personally gone to look for them. However, he had learned that they had returned to the main city. After investigating from many sides, he finally found clues that the Great Elder and the others had been captured. In fact, the Great Elder had been secretly competing with him. Therefore, when he found out that the Great Elder had been captured, he was still gloating. However, he had to inform the master of the family. After all, the Great Elder was not the only one who had been captured. Damn it. It's the Blue Snake clan again. The Yao family head's face was as black as ink. It could also be said that his expression today had never been normal. "Thanks, old man Yao. You'd better quickly go and save your Yao family's grand elder and the others. Now that they've fallen into the Azure Snake's hands, I can't imagine how much torture they'll have to endure." Seeing this, the head of the Chung clan asked with a face full of concern. In reality, he wanted to go and watch the show and find those blue snakes to get their snake venom. However, the premise was that Elder Yaojiu had to know the location of the Blue Snake clan. Otherwise, wouldn't all his efforts be in vain? Where are those dead snakes? Even though he was angry that they could not talk about Lung Ruoxia again, he could not deny that Old Man Cheng's words were not without reason. No matter how useless First Elder and the others were, they were still his descendants and members of the Yao family. Naturally, they couldn't fall into the hands of a snake. If that was the case, where would the Yao family put their face? Someone saw a group of snakes on a cliff near the Yao family's divine realm. I wonder if they're the ones who kidnapped the First Elder and the others. Elder Yaojiu said with uncertainty. That's easy, we'll know when we go and take a look. The head of the Chung clan immediately suggested upon hearing this. He was so eager to set off immediately. Let's go and take a look. After a moment of silence, the head of the Yao family spoke. He was the first to leave. Seeing this, the other family heads also teleported away. Very quickly, the Yao family head and the others arrived at the cliff. Sure enough, they saw the Yao family's first elder, and the others hanging on the cliff like goods. However, at this time, their image was not very good, because the Yao family's elders were hanging upside down and only wore small underpants. The rest of their bodies were bare. Moreover, their skin was pale without a trace of blood. In the rustling autumn wind, they were shivering from the cold. Seeing this, the head of the Chung family couldn't help but sigh. That's so pitiful. How come they've been stripped naked? His words, unsurprisingly, received a roll of eyes from the head of the Yao family. Retracting his gaze, the Yao clan head instructed Elder Yaojiu. Hurry up and put them down. Yes. Yes, Elder Yaojiu replied. Then he looked around vigilantly. After confirming that there were no enemies, he walked to the edge of the cliff with confidence. Just as he was about to untie the elder closest to him, he suddenly realized that the rope tied to the elder had moved, and was bearing its sharp venomous fangs at him. Instantly, Elder Yaojiu was so frightened that he took a huge step back. Fuck! This wasn't a rope, it was a snake. However, these snakes were thin and long, and they did not move. They looked no different from ropes. The head of the Yao family, and the others also realized that the ropes that were holding the Yao family elders were not real ropes, but live snakes. For a moment, they all forgot to react. This idea is really too original. The head of the Chung clan and the others couldn't help but think to themselves. Only the head of the Yao clan was observing those ropes, and then, to his surprise, he began to attack. Old man Yao, how can you attack? Don't you care about the lives of these Yao family elders? The head of the Chung clan couldn't help but remind her. As he spoke, he once again received a dagger glare from the head of the Yao family. As he finished speaking, he personally witnessed an elder of the Yao family being thrown off the rope and falling off the cliff. Seeing this, he quickly covered his mouth and thought, "Am I a jinx? How could he be so accurate?" As for the rope that was attacked by the head of the Yao family, it nimbly climbed up a huge tree and escaped. This scene made the family head sympathize with the elder who had fallen off the cliff. In fact, it was all the fault of the family head that the elder had lost his footing. They didn't know if that fellow would die with his eyes wide open. But fortunately, that elder was unconscious when he fell and didn't know anything. Otherwise, they would have been killed by the screams. The few of them secretly complained to themselves without any sympathy. However, when they saw the gloomy face of the Yao family's head, they didn't say anything more. But they didn't intend to help. Seeing this, the head of the Yao family was furious. In the end, he couldn't help but roar, "Can't you guys lend a hand?" Hearing this, the other family heads looked at each other. Then they saw the Chung family head say with a troubled expression, "We're so clumsy. If we accidentally push your family's elder off the cliff, won't you blame us? If you don't blame us, we'll help you. Can't you guys be more careful?" The head of the Yao family asked, holding back his anger. In his eyes, these were clearly excuses from the other party. However, he didn't dare to get angry, afraid that these people would quit in a fit of anger. After all, with these people around, even if they didn't care about anything, they still had a deterrent effect. To put it bluntly, it was better to have them around than to have none. Chapter 2253. The Enlarged Lil Fire 1. Even if you're being careful, there are times when you make mistakes. We really can't guarantee that we won't make a mistake, so you'd better think carefully. If we accidentally make a mistake, don't blame us. Because you were the one who shamelessly asked for our help. Everyone can be a witness. Patriarch Chung really didn't believe in Patriarch Yao's credibility, so he had no choice but to say the ugly words first. But in reality, he didn't really want to meddle in the Yao family's business, so he spared no effort to find a way to shirk it. The other family heads present had similar thoughts as him. Everyone knew in their hearts that it was best not to get involved in the Yao family's business, otherwise, it would definitely be a waste of effort. When the head of the Yao family heard these words, although he was furious, he was not stupid. He knew that now was not the time to offend these people, so he could only suppress his anger and say, "Don't worry and just help. If something really happens to these elders, it's their own lives, they can't blame you. Don't worry. I will definitely not blame you. I won't blame you for now, but if something really happens to these elders, it's hard to say if the Yao family will come after you in the future." After the Yao family's head said those words of no blame, he couldn't help but feel disgruntled in his heart. Who asked him not to offend them now? After hearing Master Yao's promise, the other masters were still worried, so Master Ning said, "Words are not proof. I think you'd better take a blood oath. A blood oath is good. As long as you make a blood oath, we will immediately help you save these people." Hearing this, the master of the Chung family was the first to respond, and the other masters also nodded repeatedly. Obviously, they very much agreed with Master Ning's proposal, and they all looked at Master Ning with admiration, thinking, as expected of Master Ning, why didn't they think of it? In this way, if something really happened, the Yao family wouldn't dare to do anything to them even if they were dissatisfied with them. Otherwise, the blood oath would kill them first. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that they had to make the head of the Yao family swear a blood oath in the name of the Yao family. Otherwise, they would rather be charged with the crime of watching with folded arms than meddle in the Yao family's affairs. In any case, it wasn't the first time that the head of the Yao family had given them such a big label. They were also slowly getting used to it. A blood oath? When the other patriarchs felt that it was necessary, the Yao family's patriarch heard it, and was so angry that the flames of anger in his heart rose. Fuck. Could a blood oath be casually taken? That was a blood oath. In other words, if he made a blood oath, as long as it was his descendants who were related to him by blood, they could not find trouble with these families. Otherwise, the Yao family would be the one in trouble. Therefore, this blood oath must not be taken. If the other party only wanted him to write a written pledge or make an oath, he could reluctantly agree, but a blood oath? No way. In fact, there was another reason why the head of the Yao family was not willing to make a blood oath. If he had only written a written pledge or made an ordinary oath, he might not have been able to find trouble with the other 7 families, but that didn't mean that his own family members couldn't find trouble with them. Therefore, he could never make a blood oath. However, he also knew that if he didn't make a blood oath, these old foxes would definitely not be willing to help him. Therefore, when he thought of this, his gloomy face became even darker. Thanks Elder Yao Jiu, who was at the side, did not dare to step forward at all when he saw his family head's face that was as dark as ink. He tried his best to lower his presence so that the family head would not vent his anger on him. However, he was obviously overthinking it. The head of the Yao family couldn't care about him right now because he had a better target to vent his anger on. And that was the snakes that tied the Yao family elders down. After making up his mind, Master Yao glared at Master Ning and the others with his eyes that were spitting fire. You want me to take a blood oath? Humph. I can't afford to use you, but I don't need your help. After he finished speaking, the head of the Yao family flew towards the cliff in a rage. Seeing this, the head of the Chung clan couldn't help but say in disappointment, Old Man Yao is really a jokester. They don't even know how to bargain with us, sigh. I thought he was a smart person, so I overestimated him. As soon as these words came out, the Ning family's master and the others couldn't help but have black lines on their foreheads. They thought to themselves, are you shooting after the horse? They didn't think that it would be useful for the old man of the Yao family to bargain with them over this matter. After all, they didn't sincerely want to help, so they naturally wouldn't give the other party a chance to bargain. On this point, they had the opposite opinion of the Chung family's patriarch. They felt that the Yao family's patriarch was very wise. Elder Yao Jiu, who had also heard these words, was so angry that he could not catch his breath and almost passed out. Fuck. Was there such an infuriating fellow? If it wasn't for the fact that this wasn't the right place, Elder Yao Jiu couldn't guarantee that he wouldn't get angry. Although his status might not be anything in the eyes of these people, as a member of the Yao family, he was still a hot-blooded person. Naturally, he couldn't just stand by and watch them bully his family head. But now, it seemed like he could only swallow his anger. At the thought of this, he choked and coughed a few more times. When the head of the Chung clan heard this, he couldn't help but comfort her with a worried expression. Yao Xiaojiu, are you alright? Don't be afraid. Although your Yao family's elders might lose their lives, your family's ancestor will definitely be fine. As long as he's here, your Yao family will never go extinct. As the saying goes, if the old doesn't go, the new won't come. Now that these elders are dead, Old Man Yao will definitely work harder to make more people. So don't you worry. Rest assured, my ass. Hearing these seemingly concerned words, Elder Yao Jiu not only couldn't feel happy, but he even felt a faint anger in his heart. However, he knew that this was definitely not the time to argue with the Chung family head. Saving people was more important. The Yao family was not like these guys who were just there to watch the show, bored to death. There was plenty of time to argue with them. There were so many elders of the Yao family waiting for them to save them. With this thought in mind, Elder Yao Jiu wisely ignored the Chung family head's words and followed after the Yao family had to once again rush out of the cliff to save people. Seeing this, the master of the Chung family said again, Ayaya. Why was the Yao family's little brat also so restless? Those snakes are not to be trifled with. As soon as he finished speaking, the few people watching the show saw Elder Yao Jiu being swept by a slender snake tail and sent flying more than 10 meters away. Elder Yao Jiu was in an extremely sorry state as he tried his best to stand firm and not fall to the ground. I told you, these snakes are not to be trifled with. The head of the Chung family felt that he was very wise, but this time, before he could finish speaking, he immediately received 2 sharp daggers in his eyes. Seeing this, he calmly shrugged his shoulders and said, I'm just telling the truth. Chapter 2254. Lil Fires enlarged too. However, the head of the Yao family and Elder Yao Jiu, who were glaring daggers at him, didn't have much time to pay attention to him, because more and more snakes were climbing up from the bottom of the cliff and surrounding the two of them. These snakes seemed to be under someone's command. Every time the head of the Yao family and Elder Yao Jiu were about to attack them, they would deliberately climb onto the bodies of the Yao family's elders. With this, the two of them didn't dare to attack easily with Gu Fei around. Seeing this, the head of the Cheng family said with a smile, "These snakes are so smart." Yes, these snakes were very smart. They might not be as strong as the Yao family head and Elder Yao Jiu, but they had hostages in their hands, so they were absolutely fearless. As for the Yao family's patriarch and Elder Yao Jiu, they were much more depressed than the snakes. At this moment, Master Yin came to Master Cheng's side and nudged him. He whispered, "Old man Cheng, aren't you afraid that old man Yao will come after you for this? That guy is very insidious. I think you should stop while you're ahead. You have to know that he's very angry right now." Tisk. If I don't anger him, will he not find trouble with our Cheng family? Old man Yin, when did you become so simple-minded? I'll tell you, old man Yao's ambition was huge. He might not be satisfied with just trampling on our 7 families. Do you understand what I mean? So as long as we have the chance, we must do everything we can to attack him. We can't give him the time or the chance to deal with us. The head of the Cheng clan said with a serious expression, "Does he really have such great ambitions? Aren't you afraid of angering the crowd?" When the Yin family had heard this, he couldn't help but ask with wide eyes. He had always thought that the Yao family head was just a bit greedy and petty, but he had never thought that he was really as the Cheng family head had said and had great ambitions. However, he believed that although the Cheng family head seemed unreliable, he would never make irresponsible remarks. Public anger? Do you think he would offend all of us at once? Have you forgotten the purpose of his invitation? This time, he's here for old man Ning, but next time, it might be us. So we must not let him succeed, understand? Although he had the best relationship with the old man of the Ning family among the 8 great divine domains, this was by no means an important factor for him to protect the old man. He also believed that other than the old man, no one knew better than him the ambitions of the old man of the Yao family. When Master Yin heard this, he also nodded solemnly. He looked at Master Ning's calm face and admired him in his heart. Look at the old man from the Ning family. He was so calm at all times and would never panic. He felt that he still had a lot to learn from him. Just as the master of the Yin family was feeling emotional and decided to follow the footsteps of the old man from the Ning family, he suddenly heard a roar. "I won't let you off." When Master Yin heard this, he couldn't help but turn his head in curiosity. Then he widened his eyes in disbelief. What did he see? Had the old man of the Yao family gone crazy? Why did they suddenly attack so crazily? They didn't even ask if they were friends or enemies, and even attacked their own elders? Seeing this frightening scene, the few family heads present could not help but break out in cold sweat. Oh my God! This was too unbelievable. This was because they saw with their own eyes that after the head of the Yao family attacked the snakes for a long time and couldn't even touch a single scale, he went crazy and attacked the Yao family elders and the snakes together. Furthermore, several elders had already been hit off the cliff with the snakes. They didn't know what to say about this. They could only stare speechlessly with their eyes wide open and their mouths half open, unable to regain their senses for a long time. "We're finished. It's finished. Old man Yao has gone crazy." The Cheng clan's patriarch muttered to himself with a worried expression. His voice wasn't soft, so Elder Yao Jiu, who was worriedly looking at the Cheng family's patriarch not too far away, naturally heard him clearly. After giving the Cheng family's patriarch a deep look, Elder Yao Jiu hurriedly ran to his side and worriedly pulled on the other party's arm, which was about to attack, and loudly said, "Master, don't. Get out of the way. I'm going to kill these damn snakes today." The head of the Yao family, who was burning with anger, didn't listen to anyone's advice at all. At this time, his calmness and rationality had been replaced by anger. Moreover, he had never been toyed with like this in his long life. Yes. He had a feeling that he had been played by someone, and the people who played him were some lowly snakes in the divine realm. This fact made him extremely angry. One had to know that in the immortal realm, there were not many people who he acknowledged as having a higher status than him. It was even more impossible for these snakes to be among those people. Moreover, he was on equal footing with the 4 kings of the Beast clan and the kings of the Divine Beast clan. Naturally, he would not put these snakes that were as small as dust in his eyes. But now these damn snakes were toying with him. As soon as they realized that he had the intention to attack, they all hid behind the Yao family elders and exposed the Yao family elders' bodies to be used as a shield for them, causing him to be tied up. This knowledge made the anger in his heart multiply. Therefore, in his impulse, he did not care about these descendants. However, it didn't matter if he didn't care about the life and death of these descendants. Elder Yaojio knew that he had to persuade him. Otherwise, when the family head calmed down, he might hold a grudge against him. To him, it would definitely not be worth it. After quickly weighing the pros and cons, Elder Yaojio said with a heavy heart, "Master, they are the descendants you have placed your hopes on. If they fall, the losses to our Yao family will be incalculable. So family head, please calm down, don't be fooled by these snakes." When Elder Yaojio said these words, it could be said that he loved and hated these snakes at the same time. He loved them because they had the opportunity to get rid of all their opponents, but he hated them because they had implicated the innocent because his people were also among the people who had been kidnapped by these snakes. That was why he couldn't bear to. However, these snakes were not raised by him, so they naturally could not act according to his wishes. Especially his nemesis, the Yao family's first elder. Other than being unconscious, he was still alive and well. Looking at the Yao family's first elder, who had been stripped to the point that he was only left with a pair of underpants, he really hoped that the family head would also throw him off the cliff. Unfortunately, his wish was beautiful, but reality was cruel. In his madness, the head of the Yao family had ruthlessly attacked many elders, but he had never attacked the Grand Elder. Thus, his wish would not be fulfilled in a short period of time. It's their honor to die for their family. Elder Yaojio's persuasion caused the head of the Yao family to waver for a moment, but he quickly steeled his resolve. He didn't want these snakes to be too smug. He wanted to let these hateful fellows know that he had no weaknesses. Don't even think about using these elders to threaten me. He had no lack of descendants. Chapter 2255. Lil Fires Enlarged 3. With this thought in mind, the head of the Yao family directly threw Elder Yaojio to the side and started his furious attack again. But this time, the snakes had changed their strategy. Originally, it was his attack that followed the snakes. Wherever the snakes went, his attack would follow. However, this time his attack arrived first, and then a large number of snakes quickly appeared there, shaking their heads to lure him. But he just couldn't hit them. The targets he had targeted were the Yao family's elders, many of whom were Elder Yaojio's trusted aides. This fact made Elder Yaojio's heart ache. In for a penny, in for a pound. Elder Yaojio mustered up his courage, and once again hugged his family head's body, because he knew that this couldn't continue. Otherwise, all the Yao family elders would be annihilated. "Master, please stop. Otherwise the elders will all die." Elder Yaojio shouted with a pained expression. His heart was also bleeding because many of the elders who had fallen off the cliff were his trusted aides. He didn't know if the elders were still alive. "Yup. Old man Yao, if you continue to fight like this, the Yao family's elders will really be wiped out by you." Sigh. How pitiful. If you had known this would happen, you would have taken a blood oath. With our help, even if we failed, your Yao family wouldn't have lost so many elders. But now, you should prepare for their funeral. As for the public, I suggest you say that they are poisoned. At least it's better than letting people know that they were killed by you. Otherwise, it will definitely cause panic in the divine realm. Those who don't know the truth will think that a homicidal maniac has appeared in the divine realm. The head of the Chung clan interjected, wishing for the world to be in chaos. His words instantly angered the Yao family's patriarch and Elder Yaojio to the point that their faces turned ashen and gradually turned black. In the end, the Yao family's patriarch finally couldn't bear it anymore and roared, "If you don't speak, no one will think you're mute." If he could, he really wanted to sew up the mouth of this damn old man from the Chung family. It was really too infuriating, wasn't it? At this time, he was extremely frustrated. These snakes were originally meant to be his punching bags, but who knew that not only did they not make him vent his anger, but they made him even angrier. He didn't understand why it was like this. What was the problem? The Yao clan head's mind was in a mess, while the Chung clan head, who heard his reaction, said with an aggrieved expression, "I'm just concerned about you. If you don't appreciate it, then forget it. But I'm a vengeful person. So you'd better remember. Don't ask me for help in the future. I don't care about you. Don't worry. I will never ask you for help." The head of the Yao family gritted his teeth. Then his gaze involuntarily turned to the calm and composed head of the Ning family, and he said, "Master Ning, I know you're the most loyal." However, before he could finish, he was interrupted by the calm master of the Ning family. "As long as you make a blood oath, everything will be fine." Just this one sentence made the Yao family head swallow the rest of his words back into his stomach. Fuck. If he was willing to make a blood oath, would he still need to play the emotional card with them? However, these people obviously wouldn't be moved by his words. He also knew that he couldn't continue to be impulsive. If these elders all died, the impact on the Yao family's strength would be significant. Unfortunately, now that he had thought it through, those fellows who were watching the show were not easy to manipulate. The head of the Chung family had been completely offended by him, so he could not be counted on. And the others wanted him to make a blood oath. This was exactly what he was most unwilling to do. The head of the Yao family, who had been silent for a long time, kept thinking in his heart. Then he began to quietly send voice transmissions to a few people other than the heads of the Ning and Chung families, trying to move them in private. When they heard this, they were all surprised. Did this mean that they wanted to split up? The few people who received the message didn't change their expressions, but no matter what the head of the Yao family said, they insisted that he had to take a blood oath. This fact made the head of the Yao family so angry that he almost vomited blood. Fuck. Why did he never know that the 7 families were so united? How did this happen? When did this happen? The more the head of the Yao family thought about it, the more frightened he became. This feeling of being isolated made him quite uncomfortable. One had to know that he wanted to isolate others. Why was he the one being isolated now? This terrifying result made him feel a trace of panic that he had never felt before. However, he was worthy of being in a high position for many years, and he did not show it on his face. Seeing that no matter if it was open or secret communication, or playing the emotional card, it couldn't change these people's minds, the head of the Yao family had to give up the idea of asking them for help for the time being. However, he didn't continue to attack the snakes, but stared at the snakes with big eyes and small eyes. Thanks seeing this, Lung Ruoxue, who had come with the Ning family's master and the rest to watch the show, couldn't help but talk to Tsong in private. She found out from Tsong that those who had been beaten off the cliff were still alive. This fact made her extremely surprised. How could they still be alive? Lung Ruoxue transmitted her voice to ask curiously. Furthermore, from her tone, it seemed like she was slightly regretful. Hearing this, Tsong, who was lying comfortably in the god-protecting pagoda, could not help but chuckle softly and said, "Girl, if I don't let them die, they won't die. Of course, if Nio doesn't want them to live, then I can naturally fulfill your wish. Let them live first. Xiaohua is still counting on their money to support his subordinates." Lung Ruoxue wiped away the cold sweat on her forehead, and replied helplessly, "Since that's the case, let them live a few more days. But girl, I have good news for you." Song kept him in suspense and said mysteriously, "What good news?" The moment Lung Ruoxue heard this, she immediately perked up and looked like a money grubber. She loved hearing good news the most. "There's good stuff at the bottom of this cliff," Azure said with a smile. It loved to see Nio's money-grubbing appearance the most. It was really as cute as it could be. "What is it?" Lung Ruoxue asked impatiently. She was clear that it was a piece of cake for Tsong to find out what happened at the bottom of the cliff. "Nio, when you have time, you'll know when you go down and see for yourself. I have to keep it a secret, or there won't be any surprises." Hee. Azure smiled evilly and was determined not to tell Lung Ruoxue about the situation below the cliff. Just as the two of them were conversing, suddenly, Lung Ruoxue heard a loud rumbling sound. She couldn't help but turn around to take a look, and her beautiful eyes instantly widened. Oh my God! What was this? They saw that a huge creature the size of a small mountain had appeared above the cliff. No. To be precise, it was even bigger than a small mountain. The mountain-like object was actually a snake. It was a fiery red snake that was like a transparent crystal. The snake's diameter was at least 10 meters, and its body was over 1,000 meters long. The beautiful scales on the snake's body were the size of millstones. At this moment, the red snake was glaring at the head of the Yao family with its cold eyes, which were bigger than an adult's fist. The head of the Yao family's hair stood on end. This snake was definitely the largest one he had ever seen. Even the true form of the Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Clan was probably only this big. Moreover, he wasn't sure what species this snake was. It didn't look like a blue snake at all because this snake belonged to a species he didn't know of. Could this snake be a variant of the Grey Clan? The head of the Yao family mumbled to himself as he sized up the red snake that was staring at him. The other patriarchs present also naturally assumed that this red snake was a mutated species of the Blue Snake Clan. They couldn't help but sigh inwardly. No wonder the Blue Snake Clan dared to provoke the Yao family. It turned out that there was a mutation in their clan. However, wasn't this snake's mutation a little too thorough? One had to know, not to mention the Azure Snake Clan. Even the strongest of the Snake Clan, the Silver Ring Snake Clan, didn't have such a large body. There was only one red snake in the Divine Realm. What was even more unbelievable was that they could not tell the cultivation level of this giant red snake. However, they could feel the aura on the snake's body. They knew that the snake's strength should be around Reverent God level. With that, the old man from the Yao family would have a worthy opponent. With this thought in mind, the few family heads calmed down instead, because they could clearly feel that this snake was targeting the head of the Yao family. Master Ning, who was also suspicious of the snake's identity, didn't have the same thoughts as the others. Instead, he quietly turned his gaze to Lung Ruoxue, who was hiding behind him. When Lung Ruoxue saw this, she silently nodded her head. She had been observing the giant red snake for a while now. The more she looked at it, the more familiar it felt to her. Finally, from the tip of the giant red snake's tail, she could confirm that she recognized this snake, because this snake was Lil Fire. Although Lil Fire had grown bigger, he still had some small habits. But this fact also made her a little horrified. Oh my God! How did such an exquisite and small fellow like Lil Fire suddenly become a huge monster? She couldn't accept this. One must know that the original Little Fire was so beautiful and cute, always forming a ring and wearing a bangle on her wrist. However, the current Little Fire really made her unable to think of all those. She couldn't imagine what it would be like if such a huge fire turned into a bracelet on her wrist. It was quite scary. Chapter 2256. Going Down the Cliff, 1. Just as Lung Ruoxue's thoughts were running wild, Xiaohua secretly threw her a flirtatious look and was prepared to find trouble with the head of the Yao family. Yes, it had come up from the bottom of the cliff to find trouble with the Yao family's old man and take revenge for its subordinates. Not long after it came up, the Blue Snake Clan also swaggered up from the bottom of the cliff. Looking at the black mass of snakes in front of them, several family masters, including the master of the Ning family, felt their scalps go numb. The number of snakes seemed to have increased. Compared to the others, the master of the Ning family was relatively calm, because he knew that these snakes were inextricably linked to Shui. Naturally, he was not afraid of them, but he did not know if others would be afraid. However, he knew very well that with the appearance of these snakes, if the old man from the Yao family wanted them to help, the price he would have to pay would not be as simple as a blood oath. At least, if it was him, he would definitely take advantage of the situation. It would be a waste not to fight. If they didn't take the opportunity to rob them, the old man of the Yao family wouldn't be grateful to them. In any case, they would hate him, so it was better to let him hate them more thoroughly. Thinking of this, the master of the Ning family quietly sent a message to the others. His purpose was self-evident. After the others learned of the master of the Ning family's intention, they couldn't help but agree in their hearts. With the master of the Ning family taking the lead, they naturally had to respond. After secretly discussing, The 7 people of the Ning family became more and more calm. In the face of such a huge group of snakes, they acted as if they didn't see it. They were only surprised for a moment, and then they did what they should do. From the corner of his eye, he saw their reactions and couldn't help but curse in his heart. Fuck. From the looks of it, these cunning old things would not take the initiative to help him. But he really didn't want to give up. Just as he was about to tell them to help the Yao family head, Xiaohe's attack was already in front of him. A thick red snake's tail whistled through the air, bringing with it waves of cold wind as it whipped towards the Yao family head's body. Seeing this, the Yao family head's heart jolted, and he hurriedly retreated a few steps before leaping into the air to avoid Xiaohe's snake tail attack. However, the cold wind that the snake tail brought still hit him, causing pain in a certain part of his body. Then he was furious. Fuck. Where did this rogue snake come from? It could hit anywhere, but it targeted the most vulnerable and important part of his body, which was also unusually painful. This pain directly drilled into his heart, causing the head of the Yao family to secretly clench his teeth. However, he absolutely didn't dare to show it, or else it would be too embarrassing, right? However, the people present were either reverent gods or divine emperors, so their eyes were naturally not bad. They also knew where he had been swept by the cold wind brought by the red snake tail. Instantly, everyone couldn't help but sympathize with him. What a pitiful guy. If he were to be hit a few more times, he didn't know if he could still do anything. The head of the Chung clan couldn't help but secretly rejoiced in his misfortune. And Fiery seemed to understand his thoughts. After one attack failed, it really only attacked one place. However, Lil Fire's attack was absolutely not serious, as if it was just teasing the Yao family head. The Yao family head dodged very nimbly, but even so, the most vulnerable part of his body was not spared. Although the thick red snake tail couldn't hit the head of the Yao family, the wind blades brought by the snake tail could sweep his body every time. Even if those wind blades didn't cause him heart-wrenching pain, they were definitely heart-piercing pain. If this happened too many times, even a reverent god would not be able to take it. More importantly, he could tell that this detestable snake was not using its full strength at all. Otherwise, it would not have only used its tail to continuously whip him. This fact made the head of the Yao family angry and resentful, especially when he thought about how he was being treated specially by this damn snake, and how there were a few people watching from the side. His heart felt even worse. After all, it didn't feel good to be treated as a joke. At this moment, he thought of Elder Yao Jiao and wanted to find Elder Yao Jiao to deal with this snake with him. However, he was extremely depressed to discover that Elder Yao Jiao was surrounded by a black mass of snakes and couldn't even care about himself. How detestable. The head of the Yao family was even angrier, but Lil Fire's mood was surprisingly good. Hee. Lil Fire laughed evilly, then said to the Yao family head with a smile. Yao family's old brat, this lord will properly play with you today. As for your Yao family's elders, they'll see with their own eyes how he'll play with you. The moment he finished speaking, the Yao family head's face turned even darker. The flames of anger on his body erupted uncontrollably. Lung Ruoxue and the others were all speechless. Toyed with. Wasn't this phrase inappropriate? It was because these words would make people think of some unspeakable things. However, Lung Ruoxue believed that the simple-minded little Fire would never do what they thought. That was why it was said that human thoughts were too complicated. They would always let some sensitive words cause their thoughts to run wild. This was not good. Lung Ruoxue looked down on herself in her heart for a moment, but she quickly calmed down. Furthermore, she also wanted to see how little Fire was going to play with the Yao family head. Detestable. I won't let you off. The Yao family head, who was so angry that his reaction was half a beat slower, panted heavily as he fiercely said to Lil Fire. However, Xiahua didn't care at all. Instead, it wagged its tail fiercely a few times. Then, the people present saw the elders who were hanging upside down immediately wake up after being bitten by the snakes that were hanging them. This scene made the family heads feel a chill. Ugh. He wondered if the snakes were poisonous. The pitiful Yao family elders. How did it end up in the hands of these snakes? However, even though they thought this way, their desire to watch a good show grew stronger and stronger. At this moment, The Yao family elders who had just woken up immediately started wailing at the top of their lungs when they saw the head of the Yao family. Master, please save us. Wu, these snakes are too evil. Master, these snakes are simply robbers. They robbed all our money and refused to let us go, saying that they want you to come and redeem us. As he listened to the elders' words, the Yao family head's brows furrowed even more. Fuck. Did the snakes lure them here on purpose? Hearing the words of the elders, he deeply felt that it was not impossible. When Xiaohua heard the words of the elders, he did not stop them. Instead, he laughed happily and said, "Mh. What they want to say is also what I want to say. If you want to redeem them, you'll have to take out the money. Otherwise, you'll have to leave them here to test the poison." Xiaohua's words made the Yao family head clench his teeth so hard that they creaked. How detestable. It was indeed as he had thought. The head of the Yao family knew that he had been tricked. For Elder Yao Jiu to know about this place, it was clear that he had been deliberately lured here by these snakes. Chapter 2257. Going down the cliff, too. How detestable. How detestable. The Yao family's head was so angry that he couldn't say a word, and in his heart, he was already cursing Xiaohua to the point where he was drenched in dog blood. However, Lil Fire didn't care what he thought in his heart. It evilly smiled at the Yao family head and suddenly, its huge body split into two. Two giant snakes of the same size instantly appeared in front of everyone. And those two giant red snakes that were exactly the same actually had the same strength. This scene caused everyone present to fall into a state of shock. Oh my god! How was this possible? What kind of mutated species was this? There was actually such an ability. In this way, the head of the Yao family would suffer a great loss when facing this snake. But immediately after, they became happy again, because this meant that the head of the Yao family had to ask for help. Hee. With that, they could also bargain with him. Lung Ruoxue did not sympathize with the head of the Yao family at all, when she saw that the situation was becoming more and more disadvantageous for him. However, she was rather surprised that Lil Fire could actually split himself up. This was such a pleasant surprise. Fiery's ability would definitely increase the strength of her side greatly. She just didn't know how many clones Fiery could create. Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but think to herself greedily. However, now didn't seem to be the time to think about this. The Yao family's head was still waiting for Xiaohua to deal with him. Sensing Lung Ruoxue's thoughts, Xiaohua threw another flirtatious look at her. Then, two giant red snakes that were exactly the same surrounded the Yao family head. They had the same movement, the same expression, and 4 pairs of cold and sinister eyes. They stared at the Yao family head as if they were their prey. After the man and the 2 snakes looked at each other for a few seconds, Lil Fire suddenly exerted force, and the thick snake tail once again whipped towards the Yao family head. The Yao family head took the opportunity to dodge, but the tail of the other snake also swept over at the same time. In the end, he avoided one snake tail, but he couldn't avoid the other snake tail, and his back was hit hard. Just this one hit was enough to make the head of the Yao family feel a heart-wrenching pain. This kind of pain was on a completely different level from the previous ones. Furthermore, the area of pain this time was larger, and he almost staggered and fell to the ground. However, Xiaohua didn't give him a chance to think at all. The snake tail whipped over again, and the Yao family head who was in pain also slowed down his reaction. Thus, he tragically suffered another heavy blow in front of him. The head of the Yao family grinned from the pain, but before he could react, he was thrown around like a ball by the 2 red snakes. Seeing the head of the Yao family suddenly go up and down, sometimes left, sometimes right, and being thrown by 2 giant snakes, while he himself was completely unable to resist, the sympathy of the Ning family head and the others for him was immediately like a torrential river, endless. However, the Chung family head and the others were more like watching a good show. Seeing the head of the Yao family being treated like this, their mood couldn't be any better. What are you guys doing? Hurry up and come help. At this time, seeing that he couldn't escape from the hands of these 2 snakes with his own strength, the head of the Yao family couldn't help but put down his face and ask for help. However, the tone of his words really made the head of the Ning family and the others unhappy, so his words were ignored by the other family heads. However, Master Ning still kindly said, Everything can be discussed after the blood oath is taken. Thanks, you still need to pay. The head of the Chung clan added. Fuck. He didn't forget to make him swear a blood oath. Not only that, but he also had to pay for it this time. Hearing this, the head of the Yao family was so angry that he almost vomited blood. However, he did not vomit blood, but his head was really a little dizzy. Who would be able to bear being thrown up and down by two snakes with infinite strength? This was a completely different concept from flying in the air. Even though he did not do much. While they were conversing, Little Fire had thrown the head of the Yao family even higher, causing the head of the Yao family to have no chance and time to bargain with them. Master Ning and the others saw that Master Yao didn't respond, so they watched the show with peace of mind. After a long time, the head of the Yao family, who was already dizzy, once again found an opportunity to speak and anxiously said, "Come and help me. I've agreed to all your conditions." However, his words were weak. In fact, it was already a miracle that he hadn't vomited yet. Elder Yao Jiu, who had received the same treatment as him, had completely fainted. This time, he knew that he couldn't let the master of the Ning family stand by and watch. Otherwise, if this continued, it wouldn't just be the Yao family's disgrace, but their lives as well. Even if these snakes were just toying with them now, it was hard to guarantee that they wouldn't kill them after they had enough fun. However, after hearing his words, the masters still looked at each other. In the end, it was the master of the Ning family who asked with a worried face, "Are you really going to agree to any of our conditions? You won't go back on your word? I wouldn't. You wouldn't? Absolutely not. Hurry up and help." The head of the Yao family shouted anxiously. "Then take a blood oath first. We'll discuss the reward later, but please be prepared. Our reward for helping this time will not be low." The master of the Ning family didn't quite believe his words, and directly said the ugly words first. When the head of the Yao family heard this, he was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood, but he forcefully swallowed it back. Fuck. It was really like a tiger falling into the sun. If it was any other time, he would not have given them the chance to rob him, but now, he had no choice but to ask them for help. And the blood oath had to be taken. With a deep depression, the head of the Yao family happily took a blood oath and swore with the Yao family's bloodline that he would not settle the score after this, and would also pay the compensation they asked for. After the oath was made, the master of the Ning family and the others were very satisfied, while the master of the Chung family couldn't help but emphasize, "Old man Yao, you're the one who shamelessly begged me for help. I also find you rather pitiful. Otherwise, I wouldn't care about your life or death." In fact, he didn't care about the past because he would be paid, so he could ask for a lot. "I know. Quickly come and help." Although the words of the Chung family's patriarch made the Yao family's patriarch gnash his teeth in hatred, he also knew that he couldn't offend any of them at this time. Otherwise, if they were to shirk their responsibilities, the Yao family would be the one to suffer. "They're here." The head of the Chung family replied somewhat unwillingly, but for the sake of the reward he was still the first to walk to the side of the red snake, and said in a friendly manner, "My two friends, can we discuss something? What is it?" Hearing this, Lil Fire raised his eyelids and asked. As he spoke, his movements of tossing the Yao family elder did not slow down, and still maintained a perfect rhythm. "I'm here to help this old man. However, I don't want to fight with you. So, I want to discuss with you. Can you let this old man go on our account?" Glancing at the huge red snake, the head of the Chung family couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Chapter 2258. Going Down the Cliff 3. When he said that he didn't want to fight with Lil Fire, he was absolutely sincere. Even though he agreed to help, he would not risk his life for the Yao family. He wasn't that stupid. When the other family heads heard his words, they also stopped in their tracks and looked from a distance. In fact, they didn't think that it would be useful for the Chung family head to discuss with these snakes. After all, they were here for the Yao family. However, the few people who didn't really want to help couldn't help but reveal expectant eyes after seeing the Chung family head discuss with the red snake. If he could save the Yao family without fighting, it would be the most energy-saving and the best way. What benefits do I get? The Chung family head's suggestion made Xiahua silent for a few seconds before asking. We can give you a portion of the reward that old man Yao is paying us. What do you think? The head of the Chung family thought for a moment, and continued to discuss. When Lung Ruoxia heard the Chung clan head's words, she was already rolling with laughter in her heart. She didn't expect that the head of the Chung family would actually think of sharing some of the reward with Xiaohua. Wasn't this the so-called commission? And this commission was naturally from the head of the Yao family. He just didn't know how the head of the Yao family would feel after hearing this speech. However, before the head of the Yao family could react, he felt his chest tighten. Then, he was very unfortunately angered by the suggestion of the head of the Chung family and fainted. Seeing this, Xiaohua simply threw the Yao family's head on the ground and said very impolitely, "Then I'll take half of your pay." All right. It admitted that it wanted money more than killing. Half the reward? Fine, but I don't know if they... Halfway through his words, the master of the Chung family turned his head to the master of the Ning family and the others behind him, and said hesitantly, in fact, in his opinion, even if they only got half of the reward after the event, it would be considered a profit for them, because they only moved their lips and did not put in any physical or mental effort. This money was like they had picked it up for free. There was no faster way to earn money than this. Therefore, he was very willing to pay half of the reward, just to save time and effort. When the other patriarchs heard this, they couldn't wait to nod their heads in agreement. This money was easy to earn. Only a fool would disagree. Seeing that no one objected, Fiery nodded his head in satisfaction and said, "Then it's a deal. You guys better not lie to me. Otherwise you'll be in deep trouble. Don't worry. As long as we get the reward, we will give you half of it. Now, can you return the Yao family members to us?" The head of the Chung family pointed at the head of the Yao family and the others. When the Yao family elders who had already woken up saw that not only did the head of the Chung family and the others not attack together to kill the snakes, but they had even made a deal with the devil, they were so angry that they fainted. Sure. Xiaohua looked at the members of the Yao family who had poor endurance and said, "Thank you, brother." Lung Ruoxia's face was filled with black lines when she heard Master Chung and Xiaohua calling each other brothers. Master Ning's mouth kept twitching. "You bastard. Did this old man have to be so embarrassing?" Although they thought this way in their hearts, Master Ning and the others acted quickly. After getting Xiaohua's approval, they immediately went forward to rescue the Yao family. Just as they were about to leave, they were stopped by Xiaohua again. "Wait. This is the snake venom that your clansmen need, take it." Lil Fire threw them a sparkling and translucent jade bottle. "Thank you," he said. The head of the Chung family said with a face full of surprise. He didn't expect this giant red snake to be so loyal. Originally, he was afraid that the other party didn't trust them, so he wanted to wait until they paid their reward before asking for the snake poison. Who knew that he would get it now? This result further strengthened his determination to make the Yao family bleed. After watching Master Ning and his group leave, the snake leader looked at Lil Fire with a puzzled face and asked hesitantly, "Wang, if we just let the Yao family off like this, wouldn't it be too easy on them?" It felt that the punishment the Yao family had received was not enough. The ransom they received seemed to be too little. If we don't let them go, why would they give us half of the reward? Remember, our main goal is to seek wealth. Lil Fire said as if it was a matter of course. After getting the money, we can just capture the Yao family members. Xiaohua glanced at the confused azure snakes and added, "Wang Yingming, why didn't we think of that?" Upon hearing this, the snake leader was overjoyed. Thanks Lung Ruoxia, who had returned quietly, happened to overhear their conversation. She broke out in a cold sweat. Lil Fire had learned the wrong things. And it was not just ordinarily bad. When did this happen? Why didn't she notice it at all? However, she believed that if the Yao family knew what Little Fire was thinking, they might be directly angered to death. After all, when she heard what Little Fire said, she deeply felt that Little Fire was really too detestable. Not to mention the others. I like this idea. Not bad, Lil Fire, you've improved, you know how to use your brain. At this moment, Song came out from the god-protecting pagoda, and naturally took over Lung Ruoxia's arms. As for Xiaohua, the moment it heard this voice, it immediately raised its head in surprise and said, "Boss, My performance wasn't bad, right? After it turned white, the small fire immediately shrunk and wrapped itself around Lung Ruoxia's wrist. It continued to speak smugly. Woman, I've got money again. Congratulations. Lung Ruoxia was a little speechless. When did Lil Fire acknowledge Song as its boss? Why did she not know? This fact made her feel a little disappointed. Song could sense Lung Ruoxia's thoughts and rubbed against her in a coquettish manner. There was even a trace of an evil smile on his face. Its current goal was to become the boss of Neo and the other beasts. Then, Azure's pitch-black eyes swept across the snakes, and the leader's spirit was instantly roused. When it first saw the cat, it was wondering why the king called a cat boss. But now it knew that this cat was definitely not to be trifled with. In addition to the man who made it feel fear, and the seemingly harmless woman in front of it, who also made its heart tremble, the leading snake felt a deep sense of pressure. There were many people or beasts around the king that this little azure snake could not afford to provoke. It had already understood this. At the same time, he was also glad that he had found a good boss. At least, the Azure Snake clan would no longer be bullied by humans or beasts in the divine realm. They would also have a backer. This fact made the snake leader, who was under a lot of pressure, feel relieved. It had never felt so relaxed before. In the future, even if they offended someone, they would no longer have to hide here and there. Sob. This was too blissful. At the thought of this, the snake leader couldn't help but burst into tears. When Lung Ruoxia saw this, she couldn't help but sigh to herself. This was still a sentimental snake. After sighing, she moved the evil demon and the others out of the bracelet. Seeing this, Song knew that Nyo was planning to go down to the bottom of the cliff to investigate. What an impatient girl. However, Dongfang Yu and the others, who had been moved out of the bracelet, were a little confused, especially since they had seen everything that had happened outside and heard their conversation through the light screen in the bracelet. Therefore, they looked at Xiaohua with a strange look. Dongfang Yu and Uncle Lian couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. The people and beasts by this girl's side were all so shrewd and knew how to make money. It was no wonder that she had obtained wealth that even they didn't dare to imagine in just a few short years after coming to the immortal realm. Ugh. This should be the legendary comparing gods to gods, and angering the god of death. The two of them were very sad. Back then, they were also powerful in the immortal realm, but why didn't they think of saving more money? As a result, they were so short of money now. Just thinking about it made them blush. Unfortunately, Lung Ruoxia wouldn't give them too much time to wallow in their sorrow. She glanced at Dongfang Yu and the rest who were still in a daze and said, "Let's go down to the bottom of the cliff and take a look." Shuer, are you sure? Dongfang Lin couldn't help but ask. No one had ever gone down the cliff near the Yao clan's divine realm. It wasn't that no one wanted to go down, but that they couldn't. This was because poisonous mist would be produced in the middle of the cliff, and no antidote could detoxify it. More importantly, anyone who inhaled the poison would die. Therefore, since ancient times, this seemingly small cliff had become an unsolved mystery of the divine realm. Of course, Azure said there's something good down there, so I must go down and take a look. Lung Ruoxia's will was unusually firm. But it's very dangerous down there. There's a lot of poisonous gas. We can't go down. Dongfang Lin reminded. Okay. You can't go down because you're too weak. How can I go down to the bottom of the cliff? Song said with a look of disdain. However, when Dongfang Lin heard Song's words, he was deeply worried and couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "Are you even human? Are you even human? Your skin is so thick, how can we compare?" Coincidentally, at this time, Fiery also supported Azure and said, "Boss is right, I can also go down. There's a lot of good stuff down there." Lil Fire's interjection made Dongfang Lin even more speechless, even though he really wanted to say, "You're poisonous." They liked poison and were not afraid of the poisonous fog, but they couldn't. But thinking about it, he still didn't dare to say it out loud. Otherwise, if he angered Azure and Fiery, the unlucky one would definitely be him. As he thought of this, he could not help but turn his resentful gaze towards Lung Ruoxia. He stared at her without saying a word. Lung Ruoxia's hair stood on end under his gaze. She only said one sentence. "Go down." He pulled evildoer and jumped off the cliff with song. Chapter 2259. Sister, I want to eat meat 1. When the others saw this, they could only follow behind Lung Ruoxue and jump down. After all, they were not willing to be looked down upon by Lung Ruoxue. However, the cliff was not a beautiful place. As soon as they jumped down, they felt the whistling cold wind hitting their bodies. The cold wind had turned into real wind blades. Even though Dongfengyu and the others were reverent god-level cultivators, they could still feel the pain. Moreover, it was extremely cold down there. In just a moment, they shivered from the cold, and their breathing became faster. Seeing this, Song curled his lips in disdain. Then he waved his claw and a faint halo enveloped everyone. Dongfengyu and the others immediately felt much better, and their breathing became smoother. However, when they raised their heads, they saw Song's disdainful gaze. This fact made them smile bitterly. But what made them even more depressed was that from the corner of their eyes, they saw Lil Fire leading a group of snakes and slithering around them happily and easily. The snakes were not protected by any barriers, but they were able to enter the bottom of the cliff as if there was no one there. Seeing this scene, Dongfengyu and the others were envious. They were indifferent to Song's disdain. Alright. They admitted that they were not as good as him. After they calmed down, they began to enjoy the protection of the azure. However, when they crossed the thick fog halfway up the cliff, their hearts still jumped to their throats. One must know that the thick fog had already turned black because of the poison. It was so scary to look at it, let alone go down to the bottom of the cliff from the fog. Feeling as if 10,000 years had passed, Dongfengyu and the rest finally crossed the thick fog under Tsong's protection. When they saw a ray of light, they immediately became excited. After all, this meant that they were safe. At the same time, it also meant that they had the opportunity to explore the unsolvable secrets of the divine realm. When they finally reached the bottom of the cliff, everyone was shocked. None of them had expected to see such a scene. In front of them, hundreds of flowers bloomed, and the trees formed a shade. It was a scene of spring full of vitality. The bottom of the cliff seemed to be a world of its own. There was a blue sky, and the warm sun hung high in the sky. Even the air carried a faint fragrance of flowers. Many cute little animals playing in the distance showed a slight panic when they saw so many people suddenly appear in their homes. They hid behind the trees and flowers, only sticking out their small heads and peeking at them. When Lung Ruoxue saw this scene, she was instantly mesmerized by the cuteness of these small animals. Furthermore, these small animals were basically harmless and gentle breeds like foxes and rabbits. Their bodies were also much smaller than those outside. Song, is this the world at the bottom of the cliff? Lung Ruoxue caressed Song's soft fur and asked softly. Of course. However, girl, these little beasts aren't real animals. They're the elves of this place. Azure said with a smile. Elves. When Dongfengyu and the others heard this answer, they were all shocked. They didn't know since when did elves like to appear in the form of beasts? Was it to act cute? It was undeniable that elves in this state were much cuter. However, few people would associate these little guys with elves. Thanks as for Lung Ruoxue. She was rather calm after hearing Wan Song's words. This was because there were two sprites in their beast forms by her side. To be more precise, one of them was an artifact spirit. Song. They look very timid. Won't we scare them with so many people? At this moment, Lung Ruoxue could not help but ask. I want they're the gutsy ones. It's just that I'm not used to seeing you guys for the first time. Azure said indifferently, as if to prove its words. Just as Song's voice fell, a snow-white little fox the size of a palm bounced towards Lung Ruoxue's legs and rubbed against her legs coquettishly. Then it spoke in a baby voice. Sister, are you here to give us something delicious? When they heard this, Lung Ruoxue and the others could not help but feel embarrassed. What did they just hear? This little fox actually asked them for food. Could it be that elves were also foodies? This fact broke their understanding of elves. After all, although the legendary rare elves were rare, it wasn't as if they had never been seen before. However, they had never heard of any elf being so delicious. Although Lung Ruoxue was a little bewildered, she had never been able to reject the requests of cute little animals. Therefore, she quickly took out a red fruit that was slightly bigger than the little fox's fist, and stuffed it into the little fox's paw. Eat. Lung Ruoxua chuckled. Sister, I want to eat meat. The little fox looked at the fruit in its paws and said with a face full of grievance. Although the fruit smelled very fragrant and was full of spiritual energy, it did not lack all kinds of fruits. Therefore, this fruit was not rare to it, and it did not like it very much. When Lung Ruoxua heard the little fox's words, she was stunned for a long time and remained silent. This little fox-like elf was asking for meat from her with an aggrieved expression. This was too horrifying, wasn't it? One had to know that the cute little guys in her bracelet were not carnivorous elves. Why did she see a carnivorous elf at the bottom of the cliff? Moreover, looking at the little fox's expression of desire, she couldn't refuse. However, she couldn't help but think to herself, is it really good to give meat to elves? Seeing her struggle, Azure smiled and comforted her. Girl, let them eat. It's all right. After all, elves had been vegetarians for a long time, so it was normal for them to want a change of taste. Don't I also eat meat often? Can they compare to you? Lung Ruoxua asked, feeling speechless. Hee. Of course not, but although they're not as high-end as I am, it's no problem for them to eat some meat. Azure said arrogantly. Are you sure? Lung Ruoxua asked worriedly. She was afraid that these little fairies who were supposed to be vegetarian would get sick from eating too much. I'm sure, and I'm certain. Song patted his chest as he promised. The little fox beside Lung Ruoxia's legs also nodded its head, as if it was guaranteeing that it wouldn't get a stomachache. However, it seemed to be afraid of Tsong and didn't dare to look at him directly. All right then. Lung Ruoxua was helpless, but what else could she say? Following that, she took out a piece of meat from her bangle that had been cooked until it was soft and passed it to the little fox. The little fox took the steaming hot meat and greedily took a few deep breaths. Then, she sat down by Lung Ruoxia's feet and elegantly took small bites of the bone. Chapter 2260. Sister, I want to eat meat, too. The fragrance of the meat and bones quickly attracted the small animals who were hiding in fear. Lung Ruoxia's heart softened when she saw the little ones staring at her. She took out more meat and bones and distributed them to them. After that, Dongfang Yu and the others were dumbfounded as they watched the elves gnawing on the bones and gobbling them up. This was an unforgettable experience for them. At the same time, the master of the Ning family and the others had already sent the Yao family back to the main house. However, the head and elders of the Yao family had yet to wake up. In the garden of the Yao family's main courtyard, the head of the Yao family and the elders of the Yao family were arranged side by side on the ground. The head of the Ning family and the others stood on the side, watching them without blinking. At this time, the family heads had already discussed the amount of the reward, and were just waiting for the Yao family head to wake up and pay the reward. The master of the Ning family was even more anxious. He already knew that Shui and the others had reached the bottom of the cliff, so he naturally didn't want to let go of this opportunity to explore. However, the old man of the Yao family refused to wake up, wasting his precious time. This fact made him angrier the more he thought about it, so when he tried to wake up the master of the Yao family, he was not so gentle. Bang! With another sound, Master Ning kicked Master Yao's body again. He had already lost count of how many times he had kicked, but even so, Master Yao was still unconscious. Seeing him like this, several black lines couldn't help sliding down the foreheads of the Chung clan's clan head and the others. Was this the rhythm of taking advantage of the situation to take revenge? Otherwise, there was no other way to explain Master Ning's abnormal actions. With him taking the lead, the other family heads no longer treated the Yao family head lightly. The head of the Yao family, who had been tormented like this, finally woke up after coughing a few times. In fact, he had been conscious for a long time, but he was unwilling to wake up, let alone face these people. However, what made him angry was that these people seemed to not let him go until he woke up. Therefore, after being kicked countless times, he really could not pretend anymore. When the Chung clan's clan head saw that he had woken up, he hurriedly ran in front of him in excitement and loudly said, "Old man Yao, you're finally awake. This is great. Hurry up and pay us." We still have to go back to the inn to rest. I'm so tired today. Hearing this and seeing the numerous footprints on his body, the head of the Yao family was so angry that he almost fainted again. However, the head of the Chung family, who was the closest to him, was quick-witted and hurriedly helped him massage his back. He only coughed a few times and didn't faint. Old man Yao, don't be so agitated. Your health is more important. Seeing this, the head of the Chung clan consoled her with an understanding look. Right, quickly pay the reward. If you really want to faint, you can faint however you want after you've paid the reward, alright? Seeing that the other party didn't respond, the head of the Chung family could only continue. The head of the Yao family was so angry that he was at a loss for words. He pointed at the head of the Chung family and couldn't even complete a sentence. At this time, the master of the Ning family also said impatiently, Old man Yao, hurry up and pay the reward, we are still waiting. Thanks you, how did you save us? Did you kill those snakes? Hearing this, the head of the Yao family suppressed his anger and asked. He still remembered clearly why he had fainted. If he didn't figure out what had happened after that, he would feel aggrieved about the reward. We had an agreement with the snakes, so we saved you and the elders of the Yao family. As for the snakes, we didn't kill them. The head of the Chung family blinked his eyes and said with unusual honesty, We didn't kill those snakes, and you still have the nerve to ask us for compensation? Do you think I'm stupid? The head of the Yao family roared in anger. He was so angry that his chest heaved up and down, and his face was flushed red. Don't tell me that saving you doesn't count? Why did you insist on helping your Yao family kill those snakes? The head of the Chung family asked in disbelief. Fuck. He knew that the old man from the Yao family was not a man of his word, but he didn't expect that he would try to deny it after saving them. Humph. How could there be such a good thing? He would never allow such a thing to happen. When the other family heads heard the Yao family head's accusation, they were obviously a little angry. Their expressions were not very good. However, with the Chung family head as a representative, they temporarily maintained their silence. Of course. I'm asking you for help to kill those snakes. Otherwise, I wouldn't have paid you. Hearing this, the head of the Yao family quickly said, but he was secretly happy. He didn't say he wouldn't pay. However, if he asked them to kill those snakes, the blood oath would not be able to do anything to him, because he had not broken his oath. Are you sure that you want be paid for saving you? The head of the Chung clan asked after some thought. Of course. I want you to help me kill those snakes. The head of the Yao clan said with absolute certainty. If that's the case, then we can only apologize. Master Chung and Master Ning looked at each other and smiled. What do you mean by that? Seeing the Chung clan head smile, a hint of uneasiness suddenly welled up in the Yao clan head's heart. He kept feeling that something was about to happen, but he couldn't put his finger on what was wrong. It means that since saving you doesn't count and you won't pay us, we have to send you back to those snakes. As for our deal, it's over. The head of the Chung clan laughed evilly. That's right. We're not doing business with your Yao family anymore. In the future, if your Yao family has any problems, you'll have to pay us first. Otherwise, don't expect us to help you. The master of the Ning family added. Hearing this, the master of the Yao family was dumbfounded. However, he still didn't believe that the masters of the 8 great divine domains would send the Yao family back to their enemies without caring about their friendship. But when he saw the head of the Chung family really use a rope to tie up the elders of the Yao family, and the head of the Ning family also walked towards him with a rope in hand, he really panicked. Now that he was alone, if they really fought, he was definitely not the opponent of these 7 people. Moreover, he also felt the anger of these 7 people, so he pointed at the master of the Ning family and couldn't say a complete sentence for a long time. You. What about me? Old man Yao, since you didn't keep your word, you can't blame us. Master Ning said with a calm face, but the rope in his hand did not hold back at all. In a few moves he tied the furious Master Yao into a hairpin. So fast that he did not even have the chance to resist. You can't do this. We are all part of the 8 great divine regions. In a moment of desperation, Master Yao's words became sharp. His eyes were red as he glared at Master Ning, his eyes full of flames of anger. You also know that we're one of the 8 great divine regions? You didn't keep your word first, so you can't blame us. The master of the Ning family said fiercely. Chapter 2261. Sister, I want to eat meat 3. Old man Ning, why are you wasting your breath on him? Just tie him up and throw him to those snakes. At this time, the head of the Chung family, who had already packed up the unconscious elders of the Yao family, interrupted. Yes, we shouldn't talk nonsense with him. Let's go and find those snakes. After Master Ning finished speaking, he directly picked up Master Yao and prepared to leave. At this time, the Yao family's head butler saw that the situation was not right, and had already gathered many clansmen to block the main courtyard's entrance. Seeing that they were about to leave, the Yao family's head butler mustered his courage and shouted, "Let go of the master! Yo! There really are people who aren't afraid of death." Seeing this, the head of the Chung family laughed happily. Then, he walked step by step towards the head butler of the Yao family. Seeing this, the head butler of the Yao family was so scared that he retreated. Don't dodge. Aren't you very courageous? The head of the Chung family teased. I. The Yao family's head butler was so nervous that his forehead was covered in cold sweat, and he stuttered. Most importantly, these people were the family masters of the 8 divine regions, and his own family master was in their hands. He couldn't afford to offend any of them. If you know what's good for you, move. Otherwise, I'll tie you up as well. The head of the Chung family threatened, but the head butler didn't dare to back down in front of the head of the Yao family. Otherwise, if the head of the Chung family was safe and sound, he would be the one in trouble. At this moment, the Yao family's head butler was extremely regretful. Why did he have to step out? Great, now it's too late to stop. He really regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. However, the head of the Yao family didn't know what was going on in the head butler's mind. Seeing the head butler's unyielding expression, he was deeply gratified. Unfortunately, the head butler's strength was too low and couldn't save him at all. This fact made the head of the Yao family both anxious and angry. After thinking for a long time, he finally said, "Let me go and I'll pay you, okay?" "All right. Of course. However, given your past record, we really don't believe in your credibility. So pay us our reward first, and then we'll let you go." The master of the Ning family smiled. Their main goal was money. Unless they had no other choice, why would they send the head of the Yao family back? That's right. Pay the reward first. Otherwise, what if I let you go and you go back on your word? We don't want to waste our time. The head of the Chung clan agreed. When the other patriarchs heard these words, they all nodded their heads. In truth, they had already discussed this through voice transmission earlier. If this still couldn't make the Yao clan's old man submit, then they really could only send the Yao clan's patriarch back. Otherwise, wouldn't the Yao clan's old man look down on the 7 families even more in the future? If you don't let me go, how am I supposed to get your reward? Hearing the words of the 2 people, the head of the Yao family was so angry that he gritted his teeth. That's your problem. The head of the Chung clan laughed. If you don't let me go, I can't get my reward. I'm the only one who can open the treasure vault. The head of the Yao family said after taking a few deep breaths. Like this. The Chung clan's patriarch pretended to think, while the Yao clan's patriarch hurriedly nodded and looked at them with anticipation. However, the master of the Ning family, who saw through his thoughts, said, "Even if that's the case, I can't let you go first. In my opinion, you should still authorize your Yao family's most loyal steward to get your reward." That's a good idea. The head of the Chung clan nodded in agreement. All right then. Now that things had come to this, there was no point in saying anything more. The head of the Yao family also understood that these people would not let him go until they saw the rabbit. If he didn't bleed, they would definitely not let him go. "Head butler, come closer," the head of the Yao clan said. Hearing his family head's words, the head butler, who was trembling with fear, walked forward. The Yao family had whispered a few words to him, and the head butler nodded. Just as he was about to leave, he was stopped by the Chung family head. "Wait. If you don't show us the list of remuneration we asked for, do you know how much remuneration we'll give you?" After saying this, The head of the Chung clan directly handed a few thin pieces of paper to the head butler of the Yao clan and added, "If the items on the list aren't there, items of equivalent value are fine too. In short, the required value on the list must not be less." "I got it." Great Butler Yao quickly nodded. He didn't even dare to look at those pieces of paper, and ran away as if he had seen a ghost. After the head butler left, the head of the Ning family and the head of the Yao family stared at each other. The head of the Chung family couldn't help but mumble, "Old man Yao, if only you had been so happy earlier. You would have obediently paid the reward only after such a scene happened." Sigh. "I really don't know what to say to you. You're really losing more than you gain by doing this." Yes. Old man Yao's actions had infuriated them, so they doubled the reward. Now, after paying the reward, the Yao family would probably suffer a great loss. However, they didn't sympathize with him. After all, the things he had done were really not well liked. Thanks, the original intention of the heads of the Chung and Ning families was to attack the Yao family. Although this would deepen their enmity with the Yao family, it wouldn't be easy for top families without huge wealth to cause trouble again. Therefore, they believed that after this massive loss, the Yao family should be able to take a break for a few days. After waiting for a long time, the Yao family's head butler, who seemed to have lost his parents, finally returned. However, the Yao family's head steward's expression was extremely ugly, but he still carefully handed the storage ring to the Ning family's master. The Ning family's master scanned it with his divine sense, and knew the value of the things inside. Then he nodded in satisfaction and let the Yao family's master go. Seeing this, the head of the Chung family followed suit and released the Yao family elders. After that, the few people who had received the reward didn't give the Yao family head a chance to ask them to leave. They tactfully took their leave first. If they didn't leave now, when would they? After they left, the Yao family's head butler pulled a long face and sobbed, "Master, we don't have much money left." "What did you just say?" The head of the Yao family thought he had heard wrong and hurriedly asked. "Master, we don't have much money left." The Yao clan's head butler repeated, "Where's the money? Don't I still have a lot of treasures in my treasury?" The head of the Yao family asked in disbelief. Although he had lost a lot of blood during this period of time, the wealth that the Yao family had accumulated over the years could not be lost in a short time. How could they not have money? There were a lot of them, but they've all been given to Master Ning as remuneration. The head butler of the Yao family whispered. In fact, when he was receiving the remuneration, he was also frightened. However, when he thought about how the head of the family and the elders were held hostage in the hands of others, he could only heartlessly put away the family head's many years of collection for her. When he was packing those things, his heart was also bleeding with pain. Damn it! Hearing this, the head of the Yao family quickly ran to his treasure vault. When he went in to take a look, it was almost empty. There were only a few small things left in the corner. Then, he took the access records and the list of rewards that the master of the Ning family and the others had asked for. When he saw it, he became even more furious. Detestable. I won't just let it go like this. The head of the Yao family roared fiercely, his voice reverberating through the empty treasury. In fact, he had been too careless, or rather, he had been muddled with anger. He had actually forgotten to ask what the other party had asked for as a reward, and had not thought of bargaining. It seemed that he had wanted to quickly send these people away. As a result, the blood he lost this time was a bit more. This fact made the furious head of the Yao family unable to vent his anger, and his hatred for the two heads of the Ning and Chung families deepened. Sooner or later, I'm going to take care of you guys. The head of the Yao clan cursed. Yes. At this time, he hated the other 7 family heads together. However, he was not stupid enough to deal with them together. As for now, he would just let them live a few days of leisure. With this thought, the head of the Yao family calmed down, but his heart became even darker. In the next few days, the Yao family was in a state of low pressure. The Yao family members didn't even dare to breathe loudly for fear of angering their ancestor. On the other side, after the master of the Ning family and the others returned to the inn, they immediately divided the items in the storage ring into 2. Half was the reward for the 7 of them, and the other half was promised to the snakes. After distributing the rewards equally among the 7 people, the master of the Ning family handed over the rewards for the Blue Snake clan to the master of the Chung family for safekeeping. Then, the master of the Ning family found an excuse and quietly left the inn, teleporting in the direction of the cliff. As soon as he reached the cliff, the master of the Ning family saw Song waiting at the edge of the cliff. Then Song took him down to the bottom of the cliff. Before he could express his thoughts about the world at the bottom of the cliff, he saw that Shuer and the others had become the chefs of the small beasts at the bottom of the cliff, making delicious food for them in all kinds of ways. The master of the Ning family was really envious, jealous, and hateful of the treatment the little beasts received. However, when he found out that these small beasts were not real beasts but elves, he widened his eyes and opened his mouth in disbelief, just like Dongfang Yu and the others. A meat-eating elf. The master of the Ning family was horrified. As for Lung Ruoxue, who had told him the truth, she couldn't help but snicker to herself when she saw her godfather's expression. Bad girl, you're actually laughing at your godfather. Master Ning glared at Lung Ruoxue as he snapped back to his senses. Godfather, what's wrong with that? When Dongfang Yu and the others first heard about this, they were no better than you. So you don't have to be shy. Lung Ruoxue coaxed. Chapter 2262. Help-Seeking 1. After she said that, it was Dongfang Yu and the others' turn to feel embarrassed. Thinking about it carefully, they were too flustered. However, it was understandable for them to be surprised since it was their first time meeting an elf who liked to eat meat, right? The few of them adjusted themselves. It seems that I'm not the only one who is surprised. By the way, Shuer, is there anything good down there? The master of the Ning family saw the awkwardness of Dongfang Yu and the others, so he smiled and changed the topic at the same time. Dongfang Yu and the others were relieved. They really didn't want to worry about whether they were surprised or not. Not yet. We're waiting for Godfather to come, so we can explore together. Lung Ruoxue laughed. Good girl, I didn't dote on you for nothing. Hearing this, the master of the Ning family was happy. At this time, he saw a few dog-like elves running towards him with a few red fruits on their backs. He was surprised. What are these little guys doing? It wasn't until the puppies ran in front of him and put the fruits on their backs to the master of the Ning family that he realized that these little guys were here to entertain guests. She was really too cute. The master of the Ning family bent down and picked up one of the black puppies. He looked at it carefully and found that this little guy was exactly the same as the little black dog in Shuer's bracelet. They were like twins. It was really interesting. Human, let me down. The puppy struggled with all 4 of its legs. It was not used to being held by humans, which made it feel very insecure. When Master Ning saw the trace of fear in the little black dog's clear black eyes, he felt even more tender towards this little fellow. He gently stroked the little black dog's soft fur and comforted it. Little guy, don't be afraid. I won't hurt you. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh. Godfather, these little fellows are very timid. You should put it down first. We'll have plenty of opportunities to do so in the future. All right then. The master of the Ning family said reluctantly. He didn't know if it was because he was old, but now he couldn't bear to let go of such a cute little thing. However, this little thing was indeed a little weak, as if it would break with a touch. By the way, little girl, what kind of sprites are these little guys? After reluctantly putting down the little black dog, Master Ning couldn't help but ask curiously. Can you guess? Lung Ruoxue smiled without saying a word, keeping them in suspense. The others also had strange expressions on their faces. Seeing this, the Ning family's master also guessed that these little things could not be treated with common sense. Thinking of this, Master Ning's eyes began to search the world at the bottom of the cliff. At first glance, he found that this was really a paradise. Not only was the air fresh, but the spiritual qi was rich, and the sun was very warm. The light breeze was very comfortable when it blew on the body. Compared with the upper and middle sections of the cliff, it was simply 2 different worlds. However, as far as he could see, there were either bright flowers or huge, healthy trees, so he really couldn't guess what kind of elves these little guys were. Is this little black dog a tree spirit? The master of the Ning family made wild guesses. Human in the tree spirit. At this moment, an old face appeared on the tree closest to them. Even the voice that spoke had a sense of vicissitudes that had seen through the world. The master of the Ning family was embarrassed. In fact, he just wanted to guess, because this little black dog was completely black. He really couldn't associate it with those beautiful and bright flowers, so he could only guess that it was a tree. But he didn't expect the tree spirit to have an opinion. Think so? He could treat that slightly dissatisfied face as if he had an opinion, right? Master Ning's face was red and his heart was beating fast in embarrassment. However, Lung Ruoxue and the others laughed when they saw Master Ning's awkward situation. They couldn't hold it in any longer. Lung Ruoxue had never realized that her godfather was so funny. He could actually guess the tree spirit's identity and even made the tree spirit unhappy, hee. Master Ning saw that they were laughing so happily and spread his hands in grievance. He said with an innocent face, "Laugh all you want. Laugh all you want. I'll let you guys laugh as much as you want." Hearing this, everyone laughed even more heartily. Lung Ruoxue laughed so hard that tears were about to fall. As for the snow-white little fox that was closer to Lung Ruoxue, although it did not understand why everyone was laughing so happily, seeing that these humans were in a good mood, it also laughed foolishly. Only the little black dog and the other little beasts who had been carried by the Ning family master had a confused look on their faces, as well as some confusion. When they were done laughing, Lung Ruoxue noticed that her godfather's face had turned a little dark. Seeing this, she quickly used all her skills and coaxed him for a long time before Master Ning finally smiled. In fact, the master of the Ning family was not really angry. He was just trying to scare the little girl who was smiling happily. Now that he had coaxed her, he naturally enjoyed it and was not too angry. However, the first elder couldn't bear to see his proud appearance, so after rolling his eyes at the Ning family master, he ignored him and ran to play with the little beasts. After the master of the Ning family found out that the little black dog was a flower spirit, he was stunned for a long time before he finally came back to his senses. But after he came back to his senses, he looked at the little black dog with even more surprise. He didn't stop until the little black dog's hair stood on end and ran away. Following that, the group chatted and laughed for a while before Lung Ruoxue took the initiative to ask about the Yao family's situation. After learning that her godfather and the rest had robbed the Yao family of a large sum of money, Lung Ruoxue felt some sympathy for them. The Yao family had been robbed one after another, and they had no choice but to fork out a large sum of money. She wondered if the old man of the Yao family could take the blow. Furthermore, she recalled what Xiaohua had said about capturing the Yao family again. Instantly, her sympathy for the Yao family deepened. However, she also understood the head of the Yao family. She knew that the old man was like a cockroach that couldn't be killed. Even if his vitality was greatly damaged, he probably wouldn't stop and might find out more. However, she was not too worried about this. Qingju had always been monitoring the Yao family. If there was really something, Song would tell her. Thinking of this, she decided to investigate this world at the bottom of the cliff. As for the Yao family, she would put it aside for now. Godfather, since we've reached the bottom of the cliff, let's not think about the Yao family anymore. Let's go on an adventure now. Lung Ruoxue suggested after some thought. Yes. The master of the Ning family could not ask for more. His interest in this place was definitely no less than Schwerer's. With this thought in mind, everyone quickly prepared to set off. However, before they left, the snow-white little fox blocked their way and said in a baby voice, "Sister, this is my territory. I'll take you for a walk." Hearing this, everyone was more than happy to hear it. The little fox jumped into Lung Ruoxue's arms and fought for territory with Song. Song was instantly displeased. However, the little fox didn't seem to see Song's anger, and laid calmly in Lung Ruoxue's arms. Song was so angry that he gritted his teeth. Chapter 2263. Help Seeking 2. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue hurriedly appeased Song. Only when she appeased the furious Song Yu was the matter of the fight for her father's favor successfully resolved. After that, everyone saw Song arrogantly glance at the little white fox. The red disdain in his eyes was not hidden at all. This fact made everyone feel very helpless. However, that little fox's mental state was extremely good. It was not afraid at all, and even changed into a more comfortable position in Lung Ruoxia's arms. Seeing that Song was about to flare up again, Lung Ruoxia quickly gave everyone a look. Everyone understood and set off in a hurry. Lung Ruoxia and the others were in a good mood as they walked on the small path at the bottom of the cliff. The scenery at the bottom of the cliff was simply too beautiful. Moreover, there were cute little beasts jumping around everywhere, shuttling back and forth between the flowers and trees. The atmosphere was rather warm and harmonious. Under the little fox's lead, Lung Ruoxia and the rest did not take any wrong paths. With the little fox's permission, Lung Ruoxia transplanted many precious medicinal herbs into the bangle. These medicinal herbs had not grown for a long time, and had not developed any spiritual intelligence. Therefore, the little fox was naturally very generous. After walking for an unknown amount of time, the little fox brought everyone to a cave. The cave was very small, and the entrance was about half the height of a person. If an adult wanted to enter, they would have to bend down, and only one person could enter at a time. When they arrived, the little fox jumped out of Lung Ruoxia's arms and ran in first. However, after running a few steps, it realized that Lung Ruoxia and the rest were still staring at the cave in a daze, and had not followed its footsteps. It could not help but call out, "Sister, over here." "They're here." Lung Ruoxia returned to her senses, and revealed a faint smile. Then she entered first, and the others followed closely behind. Upon entering the cave, Lung Ruoxia was surprised to find that the cave was unusually humid. She could not even see her fingers in front of her. In addition, there was a faint smell of sulfur in the air. Lung Ruoxia's curiosity was piqued. He wondered what was in the cave. With a trace of doubt, Lung Ruoxia and the rest followed behind the little fox and walked into the cave. Lung Ruoxia lit up a flame. The heat and light of the flame instantly lit up the area in front of them, but it also caused the temperature of the cave to rise abruptly, scaring Master Ning and the rest so much that they quickly jumped away from Lung Ruoxia. Shui Er's flames were not to be taken lightly. They couldn't take it. Seeing their reaction, Lung Ruoxia could only smile helplessly. "Godfather, why are you hiding so far away? This isn't my life flame." If it's not my life flame, why is the temperature so high?" Master Ning asked in disbelief. "There's sulfur here, and it's reacting with my flames," Lung Ruoxia explained. Even though she didn't know if that was the case, it was a fact that her flames had become hotter. "Hee. Girl, you've also learned how to make things up." Just as Lung Ruoxia's words fell, Song's voice rang out in Lung Ruoxia's mind. Thanks, Song's words made Lung Ruoxia extremely embarrassed. She admitted that she was speaking nonsense. However, other than that, she really could not think of any other explanation. It couldn't be that her fire attribute Shin power had also advanced, right? No. Although your life flame hasn't completely advanced to the level of chaotic divine flame, it's only one step away. And chaotic divine flame is the head of all flames, so it's normal for it to affect your fire attribute divine power. Song could sense Lung Ruoxia's thoughts and explained with a smile. Was this really the case? Does that mean I won't be able to use fire attribute divine power easily in the future? Otherwise, wouldn't the other party die the moment they make a move? Lung Ruoxia said with a slight headache. The fire attribute divine power was the one she used the most, and the fire attribute divine skill was also the one she was most comfortable with. Once she couldn't use it often, she wouldn't be used to it. Moreover, if she didn't use the fire attribute divine skill, her attack power would also decrease sharply. So what if they die? As long as Nyo is happy, what's the big deal with a few deaths? Those are all ants. When Song heard this, he said disapprovingly. However, Lung Ruoxia broke out in a cold sweat. She was not a homicidal maniac, okay? Although the strong were respected in the divine realm, in reality, she was not willing to take other people's lives unless she had no other choice. The people she had killed were all enemies who had come to her door to seek death. Therefore, she would not feel any burden in her heart even if she killed them. But now, the fire attribute divine power was affected by the life flame, and also had some degree of change. As a result, when she was sparring with others, she had to be careful. Otherwise, how bad would it be if she seriously injured her opponent? And this restricted fighting style also made people unable to enjoy to their heart's content. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxue was vexed. Hee. Girl, your worry is unnecessary. Whether it's your life flame or your fire attribute divine power, you can control them. After all, you're their master. Therefore, the situation you're thinking of will never happen. Moreover, after using fire attribute Shin power so many times, haven't you noticed that your flame is very spiritual? Song said with a smile as he saw through Lung Ruoxue's thoughts. It seemed to be the case. She had been suspicious before, but now that she heard Song's words, she understood. It seemed that everything was the credit of her life flame. But what she was most happy about was hearing Song say that what she was worried about wouldn't happen. This way, the pressure in her heart would be less. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue wasn't going into a dead end, Song was relieved. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue suddenly felt the corner of her clothes sink. She lowered her head and saw the anxious little fox staring at her with her big, wet eyes and a face full of worry. The little fox didn't know what was going on with Lung Ruoxue's sudden daze. She didn't know that she was communicating with that scary cat, so she could only feel anxious. Fortunately, Lung Ruoxue finally gave it a response. Hence, it simply tugged at the corner of Lung Ruoxue's clothes and pulled her forward. However, the little fox's body was too petite, so it was practically hanging from Lung Ruoxue's body as it led the way. Lung Ruoxue laughed and placed it on her shoulder to prevent it from getting into a fight with Song again. As the saying goes, the higher you stand, the further you can see. The little fox, who was lying on Lung Ruoxue's shoulder, suddenly had a wider field of vision and pointed out the way with more interest. Everyone followed the direction the little fox pointed, and went deeper and deeper. They didn't even know where they had walked to. However, after taking a peek at the calm and composed Song Ho, everyone calmed down. Since Song Du did not raise any suspicions, it meant that there was no problem inside. Otherwise, it would not have let Schwer come. Everyone was well aware of this, so they had even less to worry about. They did not know how long they had been walking for. All they knew was that the deeper they went, the darker it became. At the end, even Lung Ruoxue's flames could no longer light up the place. Furthermore, everyone's breathing was a little rushed, just like when they had descended the cliff. Chapter 2264. Help Seeking 3. At this moment, Azure's halo enveloped everyone again, and everyone felt their breathing ease. They continued to move forward for a long time, and under the little fox's command, they finally arrived at their destination. It was a natural stone room, somewhat like a secret room. The walls were as smooth as jade, and the walls were faintly emitting a flowing light, looking extraordinarily beautiful. However, after entering the stone room, everyone felt that the smell of sulfur seemed to be even stronger. Although Dongfangyu and the others did not know what was going on, no one asked. Instead, they all involuntarily looked at the snow-white little fox and waited for it to answer. However, the little fox didn't understand the implicit meaning of these adults. It only stared at the stone room with tears in its eyes, and no one knew what it was thinking. Upon seeing this, Lung Ruoxue and the rest were tactful, and did not disturb the little fox. However, they could not help but guess that this should be the little fox's home, right? Or perhaps it was a place where it missed its family. After the little fox reproached herself for a while, she suddenly remembered Lung Ruoxue and the others. The little fox laughed embarrassedly and said in a baby voice, "Sister, I brought you here because I need your help with something." When the little fox said this, its face was extremely shy. It sneaked a glance at Lung Ruoxue and saw that she didn't look angry. Only then did the little fox relax its anxious heart. After all, it was supposed to take its sister and the others for a walk down the cliff, but it ended up bringing her sister here. This made it very embarrassed. Help with what? As long as it's within my means, just tell me. Lung Ruoxue chuckled. Her attitude was exceptionally warm. Who asked her to treat humans and beasts with two completely different attitudes? As long as the cute beastie's requests weren't excessive, she would basically satisfy them. After all, In her opinion, Beastie was a person who knew how to repay kindness. Although she didn't expect the beasties to repay her kindness, but it was still better than helping an ingrate, right? Seeing Lung Ruoxia's unhesitating and forthright attitude, the little fox felt even more embarrassed. After secretly glancing at Song, the little fox gathered her courage and said, "I have a companion who is sick. Please save him, sister." What? When Lung Ruoxia saw that the little fox did not explain clearly, the doubt in her beautiful eyes deepened. When she saw the doubt in Lung Ruoxia's eyes, the little fox did not say anything and jumped down from Lung Ruoxia's shoulder. Then, it touched the wall with its little claws and the smooth wall opened up. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxia and the rest were stunned. They did not expect this stone chamber to have a mechanism. Then everyone saw the little fox waving at them and following behind her. They walked into the door that was opened on the wall. After entering, everyone was shocked. Oh my God! How could this be possible? As far as they could see, there were all kinds of top-grade crystals. The colorful crystals were arranged in an orderly manner and embedded in the surrounding walls. They all emitted a faint 7-colored light and were unbelievably beautiful. After the shock, everyone did not know what to say, especially when they heard the little fox say that she would give all these to Lung Ruoxia. They were speechless. Wasn't Schweier's luck a little too good? He could actually get so many top-grade crystals just by going down a cliff. One had to know that this was a top-grade item, not a high-grade, medium-grade, or even low-grade one. It was a top-grade item. In the divine realm, top-grade crystals were becoming rarer and rarer. More importantly, top-grade crystals were not cabbages. Even the top families couldn't take out so many at once. But these top-grade crystals in front of them were like cabbages in the market. That was because there were simply too many of them. However, once there were many things, they didn't seem so rare. Therefore, when everyone first saw these top-grade crystals, they were only a little surprised, but then they became calm and composed again. As a result, they were rather curious about the companion that the little fox had mentioned. Needless to say, these top-grade crystals were definitely the reward that the little fox had to pay Schweier, and for the little fox to pay such a huge amount of money, its companion should be very important to it, right? Everyone's curiosity was piqued. After Lung Ruoxia heard the little fox's words, she understood what the little fellow meant. However, she really didn't expect that this little fellow's emotional intelligence would be so high. He actually knew that he had to pay for asking for help. This was much better than many humans. But to her, since she had promised the little fellow that as long as it was something she could do, she would do her best, so these Jingxia were not that important to her. Thanks at the thought of this, Lung Ruoxia bent down and picked up the little fox. She said lovingly, "Little guy, even if you didn't give me these top-grade crystals, I would still help you as long as I can. Sister will definitely be able to help me." The little fox nodded her head with certainty. Seeing how determined the little fox was, Lung Ruoxia instantly felt immense pressure. She really did not know where this little thing's confidence came from. However, she could not bear to disappoint this little fellow. Hence, she could only swallow the ugly words that she should say. She had wanted to tell her little fox not to expect too much. After all, she had not seen the patient yet. However, looking at the little fox's confident and determined look, she could not bring herself to say such a thing. "Take me to the patient." Lung Ruoxia sighed helplessly. "Sister, the patient is there." The little fox pointed behind Lung Ruoxia, and everyone turned around at the same time. They happened to see a crystal platform slowly rising from the ground. Following that, everyone's eyes widened once again. Their mouths were half open in disbelief as they watched the scene before them. On the transparent crystal platform, there was a huge flower with a diameter of about 5 meters. However, at this time, the petals on the flower were somewhat withered and half drooped on the crystal platform. Anyone who saw it would know that the flower had lost a lot of vitality. When the little fox saw the flower, she cried and pounced on it, shouting, "Ancestor! Oh, I've found someone who can save you." "Old ancestor? Didn't he say companions? Why did he become the ancestor?" Everyone's faces were filled with question marks. However, when they saw the little fox bawling, They could only keep their questions to themselves and wait for the little fox to stop crying before listening to its explanation. The little fox cried for a while before she remembered that there were still humans around. She wiped her tears in embarrassment and said with a choked voice, "It's our companion, but in our hearts it's our ancestor. In the past it's always been taking care of us with great care. Otherwise we wouldn't have had so many transformed elves. But we can't help it when it's sick. Woo-woo." As she spoke, the little fox started to cry again. This was also the greatest pain in the hearts of these elves. Although they usually tried not to show it, in fact, every elf was silently sad in their hearts. "What illness does it have?" Lung Ruoxua gently caressed the flower petals that were bigger than a millstone, and asked with a serious expression, "I don't know. The old ancestor fell ill suddenly." The little fox replied honestly. When she heard this, Lung Ruoxua knew that this little fox only knew that the flower was sick, but she didn't know what caused it. If that was the case, it wouldn't be easy to deal with this. After all, even if a doctor were to treat a patient, it would be difficult to make a judgment without knowing the cause of the illness, especially when the patient's symptoms were not obvious. It was obvious that the petals had withered. However, she could not possibly think that it was caused by dehydration, right? At this moment, the curious Shen Nua and Luyue also walked forward and carefully observed the huge flower, but they found nothing. The main reason was that the petals had withered and the color of the petals was dark. Therefore, it was almost impossible to see the original appearance of the petals. However, according to their guess, the petals should be black in color. Schwer, what did you see? After a long while, Shen Nua could not help but ask as she looked at Lung Ruoxua in anticipation. "No, I didn't. I don't even recognize this flower." Lung Ruoxua said helplessly. She had asked Qingju about it, but he said that the damage to the flower was too severe. It was hard to tell from its appearance, but the species of this flower should be very precious. It was a treasure of the heaven and earth. However, when Lung Ruoxua looked at the flower, she found it strange, because she discovered that the center of the flower was slowly releasing poison, very similar to the poisonous fog at the waist of the cliff. Moreover, the poison in front of her seemed unremarkable, but the concentration was very high. But the strange thing was that they didn't show any signs of being poisoned. It could even be said that they didn't have any abnormalities at all. This was truly unbelievable. At the thought of this, Lung Ruoxua couldn't help but turn her gaze to the little fox. She said gently, "Little guy, what's the background of your family's ancestor? Just tell me about it." "I don't know," the little fox said with a confused look. After she finished speaking, she lowered her head again. Lung Ruoxua was depressed. How could there be a junior who didn't know their own ancestor's background? In this case, how should she deal with the problem? "Then why are you so sure that I can help you?" Lung Ruoxua couldn't help but ask after some thought. Upon hearing this, the little fox raised its head and stared unblinkingly at Lung Ruoxua with its big black eyes. Then it pointed at Song with its paw and said, "It told me." Ugh. This was the truth. Lung Ruoxua looked at Song helplessly, waiting for it to give her a reasonable explanation. Chapter 2265. Another conspiracy. Songju caught Lung Ruoxia's gaze and laughed dryly. Then he looked at her calmly and said, "Girl, don't you know alchemy? As long as you're an alchemist, you can definitely help it." What kind of logic was that? Hearing this, Lung Ruoxua was speechless. It was true that she was an alchemist, but she wanted to know, even if she managed to concoct a pill that could save this huge flower, how was she going to feed it? Where was the flower's mouth? Furthermore, she wasn't the only alchemist here. When she thought of this, her beautiful eyes couldn't help but turn towards Shen Nua and Luyue, who knew that the two of them would wave their hands repeatedly, as if to say, "Don't count me in." Instantly, Lung Ruoxia's anger started to rise. "You're not alchemists?" Lung Ruoxua said through gritted teeth. Of course we're alchemists, but we've never treated such a special patient before, so you'll have to treat this kind of rare and complicated illness." The two of them said in a very spineless manner. Just their imposing manner had weakened by more than a little. The great elder even jeered from the side. At least the two of you have some self-awareness. This kind of thing should be handled by the girl. She's better at it. These words made Lung Ruoxue not know whether to laugh or cry. She didn't know what to say. Furthermore, the little fox's expectant gaze made her feel even more pressured. After some thought, Lung Ruoxue said helplessly, "I'll try my best, but I need to figure out the species of this flower first." After that, she looked at Shen Nua and Luyue and said fiercely, "Don't even think about slacking off. You have to help me think of a way." When the two of them heard this, they hurriedly nodded their heads like pounding garlic. They didn't dare to provoke this girl, so naturally, they would do whatever she said. "Girl, I can only tell you that this flower is called the Seven Crystal Flower. As for the other details, you'll have to find out by yourself. I don't know much about it." At this moment, Azure added. Just as Song finished speaking, Lung Ruoxue's mind was filled with a cry of surprise. Seven crystal flower? So it's a seven crystal flower. No wonder I thought it looked so familiar. Green Vessel, have you heard of the seven crystal flower? Lung Ruoxue asked in surprise. Thanks, yes, I've heard of it. This flower was born only a little later than the mist. Although it didn't grow in chaos, it was once taken care of by chaos. It's a kind of plant that chaos dotes on. Moreover, it has always grown in a hidden place. I don't understand how it became like this. It's not easy for it to survive until now. Qingju sighed. It had seen a seven crystal flower once. But that was when the seven crystal flower was in full bloom and was extremely beautiful. Hence, it did not recognize that the withered flower was the seven crystal flower that was once beautiful. Sister, this flower is like the fog. There is only one in the world. However, this flower is much cuter than the fog. Do you see those colorful crystals on the wall? Those top-grade crystals were the products of the seven crystal flower, and this was the most important talent of the seven crystal flower. However, it was fortunate that not many people knew about the seven crystal flower. Otherwise, it would be unknown if the seven crystal flower could survive for so many years. However, it seemed that the seven crystal flower had been hurt. AI. Big sister, this flower is an old acquaintance of mine. When I saw it back then, it was in its most brilliant state. I didn't think that it would become like this now. Qingju could not help but sigh. Although he did not know what had happened to the seven crystal flower, the seven crystal flower itself was not weak. There were not many people who could hurt it. Therefore, Green Vessel had a rough idea of what had happened. However, he did not know if his guess was correct. He would have to wait for the seven crystal flower to wake up before he could find out. Of course, that bastard Song might also know, but he did not know if he would tell him. After hearing Qingju's words, Lung Ruoxue's heart was filled with shock. Did she hear it wrong? The top-grade crystals on the wall were the product of this flower? Then wouldn't this flower be extremely precious? With it, there was no need to find a crystal mine. Wouldn't it be better to just wait for it to conceive? Big sister, although the crystals produced by the seven crystal flower are all of the highest quality, it takes a very long time for the seven crystal flower to produce crystals. Moreover, unless it is naturally produced, it will be very harmful to the body. Don't force it, because the seven crystal flower has a strong personality. It would rather die than live in dishonor. Qingju explained as he sensed Lung Ruoxue's thoughts. So that's how it is. Then Green Vessel, do you know how to save it? Lung Ruoxue nodded and asked. I don't know. I can feel that the vitality of the seven crystal flower is very low. It must have been very hard for it to hold on for so many years. Sister, let's just try our best. Don't be too demanding. Although he wanted to cure the seven crystal flower, he did not want to put too much pressure on his sister. From his point of view, the seven crystal flower had been severely damaged and seemed to have been poisoned. In that case, it would be even more difficult to cure the seven crystal flower. Yes, I'll try my best. Lung Ruoxue promised. Since the little fox had begged her, and this flower was an old friend of Qingju, she would definitely do her best. However, she was not too confident in this. After giving it some thought, she gave some instructions to the demon and the rest before bringing Shen Nua and Luyue back to her house. She planned to focus on developing the medicinal pill for seven crystals. As for the others, she would temporarily leave them outside. Without Shui by his side, the evildoer felt that there was no point in doing anything. However, when he thought of Shui's words, he could only grit his teeth and persevere. However, his unfriendly eyes were still shooting daggers at Song. As for Azure, after receiving the demon's dagger-like gaze, it didn't really care. However, it also didn't feel good in its heart. Although it had found this matter for Niu, who was it doing it for? Wasn't it all for Niu? If he could cure that flower, the benefits to Niu would be incalculable. Unfortunately, the demonic man did not understand its painstaking efforts. This was really infuriating. When Azure thought of this, he glared at the demon ferociously. Just like that, during the period when Lung Ruoxua was researching the pill as if she was in closed-door cultivation, the man and the beast kept staring at each other. In this situation, Master Ning and the others ran as far away as they could from them, because it was too dangerous to be around them. Who knew when these two people would get into a disagreement and implicate them? Therefore, they had no choice but to hide. Moreover, in contrast to the man and the beast's cockfighting appearance, the Ning family's master and the others were quite calm. When they had nothing to do, they would play with those cute little beasts, and their little days were very comfortable. In addition, when he was bored, the master of the Ning family would leave the bottom of the cliff and go back to the inn to take a walk, and see if the Yao family had made any new moves. But what surprised him was that these days, although the Yao family had been in deep waters and suffering, the top management of the Yao family was as calm as water, without a trace of disturbance. This fact made him feel deeply incredulous. Chapter 2266. Another conspiracy, too. For this reason, he had even specially gone to find the head of the Chung family, wanting to discuss with him about the abnormality of the Yao family. However, the occasionally meticulous and most of the time carefree head of the Chung family didn't take the abnormality of the Yao family seriously at all. On the contrary, he even advised the head of the Ning family to deal with it when it came. The head of the Ning family couldn't help but be so angry that his whole body emitted cold air. Feeling the temperature around him drop, the head of the Chung family finally reacted. Old man Ning was angry. Although he did not understand why the old man was so angry, it was definitely not a good thing to make him angry. Hence, he tried his best to coax him. Unfortunately, he was not Lung Ruoxua, so the master of the Ning family would naturally not give him face. In the end, Master Ning left Master Cheng's room in a huff. Even when he returned to his room, the cold qi on Master Ning's body had not dissipated. When the seventh elder of the Ning family and the others saw this, they automatically hid far away, so as not to provoke Master Ning. However, while the others could hide, it would not be so easy for the seventh elder to hide. After sulking for a while, the master of the Ning family beckoned to the seventh elder. The seventh elder could only run to the master and carefully said, "Master, what are your orders? Has there been any movement from the Yao clan recently?" The master of the Ning family asked. "Master, the Yao family has been very peaceful recently. No one has come out to cause trouble." Hearing this, the seventh elder quickly reported. He had been following the orders of the family head to monitor the Yao family's every move. But maybe it was because of the massive bleeding just now. The Yao family was much more well-behaved. Very calm? Much more honest? Do you think that's possible? The Yao family has suffered a great loss, so how could they not do anything? The master of the Ning family said in disbelief. He knew that old geezer of the Yao family too well. That old geezer wasn't a person who would swallow a loss in silence. Once he suffered a loss, he would definitely do everything he could to get it back. Therefore, it was harder than ascending to heaven to make him believe that there was no movement from the Yao family. Furthermore, the lack of movement also meant that the Yao clan was brewing an even bigger move. But I've been sending people to keep a close eye on the Yao family. They really? The seventh elder of the Ning family said. But before he could finish, he was interrupted by the master of the Ning family. This is the Yao family's divine realm. It's not easy to monitor the Yao family. Also, you can't make too big of a move. Otherwise, the Yao family will definitely find out. Perhaps it's because of this that the Yao family hasn't made any moves on the surface, but I believe that the Yao family's secret moves won't be small. It's just that we haven't noticed them yet. The master of the Ning family analyzed. Then what do we do? Hearing this, the seventh elder of the Ning family became anxious. Don't worry, you'll think of a way. The master of the Ning family said calmly. Following this, he quietly left the inn and returned to tell everyone about his suspicions. Before anyone could say anything, Azure smiled evilly and said, Don't worry, the Yao family hasn't made any moves yet. That little guy has been sulking. Hearing this, the master of the Ning family didn't know how to react. How could he have forgotten about Song? With Song here, no matter what the Yao family did, it wouldn't be able to escape Song's eyes. However, had Azure been monitoring the Yao clan all this time? Tell your Ning family that you don't need to monitor the Yao family. Let them do whatever they want to do. The bigger the commotion, the better. Seeing the thoughts of the Ning family master, Song directly ordered. And Song's words made the master of the Ning family feel at ease. Then he hurriedly left the bottom of the cliff to pass on this notice to his family. After hearing it, the seventh elder of the Ning family and the others hesitated for a moment, but the master's words were like an imperial edict, so they naturally had to carry it out. Thanks. In the next few days, the master of the Ning family stayed in the inn to make his presence known. After all, he couldn't always use the excuse that he had something to do to not appear. Therefore, after chatting with the patriarch of the Chung clan and the others every day, he would hang around in front of the inn manager to prove that he was still in the inn. However, the head of the Chung clan couldn't understand his actions. After dragging the Ning family's master into his room, the Chung family's master couldn't help but ask in a low voice, Old man Ning, where have you been the past few days? I went on an outing. It's so boring to stay in the inn all the time, so I went to visit the Yao family's divine territory. Master Ning said with a smile. Then why didn't you call me? The head of the Chung clan said with a look of dissatisfaction. Why did I call you? It would feel good to swim alone. Why don't you go out on your own and give your share to the Azure Snake clan? The master of the Ning family suggested. That's a good idea, but I don't like to go on a scenic tour by myself. Why don't you come with me? The head of the Chung clan said expectantly. It feels weird for the two of us to go out alone. Why don't I call the other family heads and family members? Let's also take this opportunity to have some fun and bond. The master of the Ning family said after some thought. Yes, I'll go find them now, hee. If the Yao family's old man were to find out about this, who knows how angry he would be? The head of the Chung family said excitedly. Now, he had already regarded angering the old man of the Yao family as the greatest joy in his life. Therefore, he was happy to do anything that would make the old man angry. The proposal of the Ning family's master made the Chung family's master take action. Soon he informed the other families, and the masters of the other families, who had been idle for a long time, immediately responded. They divided their work and began to purchase in large quantities in the Yao family's main city. Such a big movement naturally alerted the first elder and the ninth elder of the Yao family. When the two of them received the news, they were very puzzled at first. They didn't know what the 7 families wanted to do. However, when they heard that the 7 families had left the inn for an outing, they were so angry that their lungs were about to explode. Fuck. They were still in the mood to go on a scenic tour? Wasn't this clearly trying to anger him? He had made the Yao family bleed so much that he could go out and play with their money. Furthermore, he was playing around the Yao family's divine territory. Wasn't this an insult to the Yao family? They really went too far. The more they thought about it, the angrier they became. They quickly reported this matter to their master. When the master of the Yao family heard this news, the master of the Ning family and the others had already left the Yao family's main city and were heading for the Yao family's most beautiful scenery, the verdant fir waterfall. As for the head of the Yao family, he could only remain in his room, jumping up and down in anger. Damn it. I won't let you off. The head of the Yao family bellowed, unconsciously spreading out his pressure, scaring all the little beasts within 100 miles. The Yao family members were even more afraid, like little chicks that had just come out of their shells, trembling. The first elder and the ninth elder of the Yao family, who were the closest to him, were also pale and had cold sweat on their foreheads. Chapter 2267 Another Conspiracy 3. Master, calm down. The Yao clan's first elder gasped for breath and loudly said, "Calm down? How am I supposed to calm down? They took our Yao family's hard-earned money and went out to play. This is really infuriating." The Yao clan head's rage was simply indescribable, and the actions of those 7 clans made him gnash his teeth in hatred. "Patriarch, why don't we send some people to kill them?" Seeing that the master's anger had not subsided, the Yao family's first elder suggested, "I would like to kill them, but do you think we can defeat them with just our Yao family?" The head of the Yao family glared at them with eyes that were spitting fire as he roared in anger. What a pig's brain. Why didn't he think clearly before he spoke or did things? Could the Yao family be a match for the 7 families? Of course, if he only destroyed one, he could still do it. However, this would inevitably alert the other 6 families. He didn't want to alert the other 6 families, which would make it difficult for him to make a move in the future. "Master, it's very difficult for us to destroy the 7 families at the same time, but we can also find help," the Yao clan's first elder said after some thought. Tell me about it," the head of the Yao family asked with interest. "Family head, isn't the god world condemning Lung Ruoxua now? We can spread the news that Lung Ruoxua is at the verdant fir waterfall. By then, those major factions that want to get rid of Lung Ruoxua to get the reward will definitely swarm to the verdant fir waterfall. By then, we can take advantage of the chaos to get rid of the other 7 great divine regions one by one. Moreover, we can also seek help from the Divine Master's residence. I believe that the Divine Master would definitely not be willing to see anyone disrupting the order of the Divine Realm." The Yao clan's first elder's mind whirred, and after thinking for a moment he said, "What you just said. Let me think about it." The head of the Yao clan said, "Yes. Master, please take your time to think. We won't disturb you any longer." After the Yao family's first elder finished speaking, he forcefully dragged Elder Yao Jiu, who was hesitating to speak, out of the Yao family head's room. After leaving, the head of the Yao family really started to think very seriously. The 9th elder, who had been forcefully dragged away, suddenly pulled away the arm of the first elder, who was holding on to him, and growled with a face full of dissatisfaction. "What kind of rotten idea did you come up with? Do you think the patriarchs of the 8 great divine regions are so easy to deal with? You want to use the people of Black River who wanted to kill Lung Ruoxua to deal with the people from the 8 great divine regions? Have you lost your mind?" Elder Yao Jiu was extremely dissatisfied. Although he was also angry at the actions of the Ning family's head and the others, he couldn't deny that he still had his rationality and brain. He knew very well that now was not the time to fall out with the other 7 families. Otherwise, the family head wouldn't have chosen to swallow his anger. However, the family head had endured all those things before, but this damned great elder had to come up with a bad idea at this time. And the family head was even a little moved. This fact made him so angry that he was about to explode. But what made him even angrier was that the Yao family's first elder actually didn't give him a chance to speak and forcefully dragged him out of the family head's room. This way, with no one to dissuade the family head, who knew what decision he would make. At the thought of this, Elder Yao Jiu glared at the first elder fiercely before returning to his family head's room, leaving behind the Yao family's first elder, who was drenched in cold sweat and had chills running down his spine. He didn't expect his 9th brother to have such an imposing manner. This made the Yao family's first elder feel a deep sense of crisis, but he knew that this was not the time to go in and provoke the head of the family, so the furious first elder left in a huff. Not long after, the Yao family's first elder heard the good news that the 9th elder had been locked up by the family head. Instantly he felt a little proud. After all, the older the ginger, the spicier it was. How could old 9 be his match? Even if old 9 was liked by the family head, when the family head was thinking, it was best not to go against the family head's lead singer. Otherwise, it was guaranteed that he would not have a good end. After all, the authority of the master could not be challenged. They only needed to execute the decision made by the master, who cared if it was right or wrong. This was what the Yao clan's first elder was thinking. After that, he was summoned by the head of the Yao family. Following that, members of the Yao family left the Yao family's main city one after another. There were also rumors in the god realm that Lung Ruoxue was no longer in the land of evil demons. The various factions that had been guarding the foot of the mountain in the land of evil demons were all shocked when they heard the news. They had no idea when Lung Ruoxue had left. Thanks, but soon after, they heard the latest and most accurate address of Lung Ruoxue's location. Lung Ruoxue was currently at the Verdant Fir Waterfall. Everyone in the divine realm knew about the Verdant Fir Waterfall. It was the most beautiful place in the Yao clan's divine realm. Every year, many deities would go there to relax because of its fame. When the various major powers heard about the place, their faces would turn black with anger. They were like dead dogs, guarding the door for others, but the owner was no longer at home. This fact infuriated all the major forces. Soon, most of the forces gathered at the foot of the mountain in the land of evil demons sent people to the Verdant Fir Waterfall. At this time, the huge temptation of the reward had also made them forget the terrible contagious rumor that had spread not long ago in the Yao family's divine territory. The road from the Yao family's divine territory to the Verdant Fir Waterfall had instantly become lively. At the same time, the largest guilds in the firmament, including the Craftsman's Guild and the Alchemist Guild, as well as the Ascender Alliance, had also received the Yao clan's invitation. The reason was naturally to invite them to discuss the matter of Lung Ruoxue. The Armament Guild and Alchemist Guild that had received the invitation, after seeing that invitation, seemed to have received a hot potato. Everyone knew that the first elder and the two vice presidents of the Craftsman's Guild headquarters had a close relationship with Lung Ruoxue, especially Vice President Mo Yan, who was the master of Lung Ruoxue's ancestor. Hence, the craftsmen would always feel that they were in the most difficult position on this matter. And now, the Elder Council, who was in charge of the daily affairs of the Armament Guild headquarters, was in a dilemma when faced with the invitation that should not have appeared. At this moment in the Armament Guild headquarters, those who had the final say were either not around or were in closed-door cultivation. A few important figures in the Armament Guild headquarters were also very close to Lung Ruoxue. Hence, the Elders Guild of the Armament Guild headquarters were not willing to be the villain. After all, no matter what heinous crimes Lung Ruoxue had committed, it had nothing to do with the Armament Guild headquarters. They were only in charge of refining armaments and did not care about anything else. This was the tradition of the Armament Guild headquarters since ancient times, and it was precisely this kind of transcendental neutral position. Thus, the Weapon Master Association was able to last for a long time in the God realm. However, after a long period of peace, no matter how united or powerful the faction was, there would always be a few discordant voices. After all, there was no lack of rat shit anywhere. The Craftsman's Guild was the same. After receiving the Yao family's invitation, the Elders Guild, which was originally peaceful, was split into two factions. One faction was led by the second elder, who felt that they should participate and contribute to the firmament. After all, in his words, what Lung Ruoxue had done had infuriated both man and God. But in fact, he was taking the opportunity to take revenge for his big brother. His elder brother was the second elder of the Craftsman's Guild, who was rumored to have been killed by Ning Yan's domestic violence. He originally had a high position in the guild, but after his elder brother's death, the first elder wanted to maintain the balance in the guild and shut up their family's mouth, so he was promoted to the second elder position. However, the great elder knew that this fellow was not a peaceful person. Therefore, although he was the second elder of the Craftsman's Guild headquarters, he did not have the real power of the second elder. Therefore, his right to speak in the Craftsman's Guild headquarters was sometimes not even comparable to the third elder. This was also one of the main reasons why he hated the great elder. Now that he had such a good opportunity, he was naturally not willing to let it go. The other faction was led by the third elder. The old man was well aware of the relationship between the first elder, Mo Yan, Lu Feng and Lung Ruoxue, so he was not willing to get involved in this dispute. However, he also did not want to see the second elder stirring up a mess in the Armament Guild when the first elder was not in the headquarters, and the people's hearts would be wavered. Therefore he, who had his heart set on refining armaments, had no choice but to step forward and fight against the second elder. Otherwise, he would not be able to answer to the first elder, who the Elders Guild had entrusted him to manage. In the end, the two groups of people who were in a heated argument had no choice but to invite Mo Yen, who was in seclusion to guide his own disciple, Lung Xiaoyu, to come out. Since the master had come out of seclusion, Lung Xiaoyu naturally came out as well. All these years, the two of them had been in closed-door cultivation, so they did not know much about Lung Ruox's situation. With the help of Lung Ruox's mini pills and supreme-grade crystals, as well as his master's guidance, Lung Xiaoyu's standard of weapon refinement was only one step away from the weapon god level. Her strength had also reached the level of a divine emperor. Mo Yin was deeply gratified by this. After all, masters always hoped that their disciples would surpass their masters. However, when they came out of their closed-door cultivation and heard about Lung Ruox's incident, they were shocked. It seemed that they had only not seen Shui for a few years, right? How did she manage to stir up such a storm in the divine realm and make it so lively? Yes, in their eyes, the divine realm was much more lively than before. However, this commotion seemed to be disadvantageous to Shui. The Elders Guild of the Armament Guild headquarters was already in a heated argument because of Lung Ruox's matter, and was split into two factions. What more the other forces? They were probably not any stronger than the Armament Guild headquarters, as there was no lack of people who wished for the world to be in chaos. Mo Yin knew what the current situation in the divine realm was without even thinking. Chapter 2268. I'm going on behalf of justice. 1. In the assembly hall of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters, Mo Yin sat calmly at the head of the table, while Lung Xiaoyu stood respectfully behind him in a protective stance. The two of them listened to the second and third elders' heated argument, but they did not stop them. Instead, they chose to let things be. Moreover, looking at the usually high and mighty elders of the Armament Guild headquarters quarreling with each other like street rascals, the two of them felt that it was quite interesting. So the two of them watched this lively scene with great interest. After a long time, the two groups of people, who were quarreling with each other, saw that neither of the master and disciple interrupted, and gradually, the voices of the argument became softer and softer, until it disappeared. What's the matter? Mo Yin smiled faintly. Have you had enough? When the second and third elders saw him, they quickly said awkwardly, He. Your Excellency Mo Yin, Great Elder, President, and Your Excellency Lu Feng are not here. So our Craftsmen's Guild is counting on you to make the decision. Are you sure you want me to make the decision? Mo Yin raised his eyebrows and asked indifferently. Of course. The two of them said in unison. No regrets. Mo Yin asked again, and the third elder answered very quickly, immediately indicating that he would not regret it. How could he regret it? He couldn't wait to throw this hot potato out as soon as possible. He was not willing to care about anything that involved Lung Ruoxue. However, the second elder was a little hesitant. He mumbled for a long time before he could not help but say, Sir Mo Yin is famous for being fair in the Blacksmith Guild. I believe you won't be biased towards anyone. In other words, he had also agreed, but it was a very forced agreement. Hearing this, Mo Yin smiled and said, You're right, of course I'll be fair. This was good. The second elder was satisfied. He didn't believe that Mo Yin would dare to side with Lung Ruoxue in front of so many people, unless he was not afraid of being drowned by the spittle of the elders. Thinking of this, the second elder's mood relaxed. If this matter went as he wished, he was afraid that the first elder of the Elder Council would have to be replaced. Ha. The second elder couldn't help but daydream. Fortunately, no one here knew what he was thinking. Otherwise, he would have laughed his head off. A second elder who had only been in power for a few years, a second elder who didn't have any real power, actually dared to covet the position of the great elder. If that wasn't courting death, what was? In fact, most of the elders in the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters were clear that the second elder was ambitious. Unfortunately, he was slightly lacking in ability. However, the person involved did not feel that he was not capable at all. Instead, he felt that the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters did not give him a chance. Therefore, in the few years that the Great Elder was not in the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters, The second elder had become more and more active. But fortunately, the great elder's position in the Craftsmen's Guild was deeply rooted, and most of the elders had been promoted by him and were very loyal to him. In this way, no matter how happy the second elder was, it was impossible to shake the great elder's position in the Craftsmen's Guild and the Elders' Guild. Therefore, in the eyes of the elders, it would be difficult for the second elder to replace the great elder in this lifetime. Thanks, however, these words were only thought in everyone's hearts. No one would be foolish enough to say it out loud. So the second elder still didn't know that his thoughts had long been revealed. The second elder saw this incident as an opportunity for him to rise to power. So he actively encouraged the elders to agree to the Yao family's invitation. However, other than the elders who usually wore the same pants as him, the other elders did not approve of participating in this matter. In the words of those elders, their mission was to refine weapons and not to stand out. However, the second elder insisted that they were doing it for justice. The second elder had turned the elder council upside down just because he said he was doing it for the sake of justice, and even alerted Mo Yen. Although the third elder did not agree with this, what else could he say? More importantly, Mo Yen had said that he would be fair, so the third elder and the rest did not say anything else. With Mo Yen around, in addition to the relationship between Mo Yen and Lung Ruoxia, they knew that they had nothing to do here. The people on the third elder's side remained silent. The second elder also looked at Mo Yen expectantly, hoping to hear a satisfactory result from his mouth. However, Mo Yen only smiled at them and did not say a word. The second elder immediately became a little anxious. Sir Mo Yen, say something. How should this matter be dealt with? Are we going or not? The second elder asked anxiously. Second elder, you're on the side that agrees to go to the Yao family, right? Mo Yen suddenly asked. Of course. The second elder nodded his head repeatedly, afraid that Mo Yen would misunderstand if he nodded too late. Then second elder, can you give me a reason why I must go? Mo Yen continued to ask with a smile. Lung Ruoxia has committed a grave crime and has angered the magical beasts. The Divine Master's estate has also put a huge bounty on her head. The reason why the Yao family has invited us to the Yao family's divine territory is to discuss Lung Ruoxia's matter. After all, we're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for justice. The second elder said righteously. However, his words made the third elder despise him in his heart. For the sake of justice, my ass. You're clearly doing this for your own selfish reasons. Do you think they're stupid and can't tell? The third elder couldn't help but mutter to himself, his contempt for the second elder growing even deeper. However, now that Mo Yen had made the decision, he would like to see how far the second elder would go. With this thought in mind, the third elder calmed down. When Mo Yen heard the second elder's words, he smiled in agreement and said, Second elder is really a warm-hearted person. After hearing your words, I feel that our Craftsmen's Guild should really do our best for the divine realm. So, after hearing this, the second elder and third elder couldn't help but stare at Mo Yen even more intently. At this time, Mo Yen heard a poochie sound and teased. Second elder, third elder, I'll misunderstand if you keep looking at me like this. Ugh. The two of them blushed immediately when they heard that. Seeing them like this, Mo Yen laughed even more happily, as if he had forgotten what he was going to say next. The second elder was so anxious that his face and ears turned red. Mr. Mo Yen, you haven't finished, have you? The second elder warned. Yes, I didn't finish. Actually, second elder should know what I wanted to say, right? Mo Yen said, pretending to be mysterious. What? The second elder blinked his eyes in confusion. What the hell did he know? He wasn't a worm in Mo Yen's stomach, so how could he know what that guy was trying to say? However, he still made a bold guess. Sir Mo Yen, do you mean that we should accept the Yao family's invitation? Chapter 2269. I'm going on behalf of justice, too. That's right. Since the Yao family has sent out an invitation, if we don't go, the head of the Yao family will definitely bear a grudge, so we'd better go. The Yao family's god territory isn't far from the Blacksmith's Guild headquarters anyway. Mo Yen said with a faint smile. Not far away. When the third elder heard this, he couldn't help but laugh in his heart. His Excellency Mo Yen must be being sarcastic. The Yao family's divine territory was quite a distance away from the Craftsman's Guild. If a reverent god used all his strength to teleport, it would take at least half a month. If he relied on a flying beast, it would probably be more than a month later when he arrived at the Yao family's divine realm. By then it would be too late. After thinking about it, he had to admit that Mo Yan's idea was good, but only Mo Yan would be so sure to accept the Yao family's invitation. He would never dare to say it. Otherwise, the hot-tempered first elder would not let him off. The second elder was also very happy to hear this. No matter what, his wish had finally been achieved. This time, he had to seize the opportunity and fight for a higher position. However, when he thought about the location of the Yao family's divine territory, he was a little conflicted. The Yao family's divine territory was too far away from here. However, this opportunity to take down the great elder was too rare, so he was not willing to let it go. Just go far away. For the sake of his own future, he had to accept it. The second elder was both happy and at a loss. At this moment, one of the elders suddenly asked, "Mr. Mo Yen, are we really going to send people to the Yao family's god domain?" The person who spoke was an elder who supported third elder. He had only asked this question because he had received third elder's gaze. However, when Mo Yen heard his question, he could not help but frown and pretend to be angry. Am I not clear enough? Of course we're going. Oh, we are all doing this for justice. Therefore, we can't stay out of this. That's right. The second elder quickly chimed in. Mr. Mo Yen, it's not that I'm against going to the Yao family's god domain, but you've been in closed-door cultivation, so you don't know what the situation is like in the Yao family's god domain. The elder who had spoken glanced at the second elder, before speaking with a calm expression. Could it be that there's some inside story that I don't know? Hearing this, Mo Yan's curiosity was piqued. Upon seeing this, the elder who spoke quickly described the Yao family as the source of the infection, adding oil to the fire. After hearing this, Mo Yan's face immediately darkened, and then he said angrily, "That damned Yao family, what are they up to? Is he trying to lure us over so that he can catch us all in one fell swoop?" After he finished speaking, many elders' shoulders started to tremble. It looked like they were frightened, but in fact, they were holding back their laughter. Combined with what Mo Yen had just said, this scene seemed quite reasonable. Even the second elder thought that the timid elders were frightened. Therefore he quickly explained, "Sir Mo Yen, although there were such rumors in the Yao family's divine realm before, it was a long time ago. I believe that the Yao family is safe now. Otherwise, how would the head of the Yao family dare to invite us over? You must know that we're not the only family he invited." Second elder's words aren't without reason. However, out of consideration for our safety, I think we should be more careful on this matter. After all, this concerns the safety of the people heading to the Yao family's divine realm. We can't be careless. The third elder interjected. Seeing that third elder didn't go against him this time, second elder naturally wouldn't make a ruckus at him like a cockfight. Moreover, third elder was thinking about his safety, so second elder felt that he had to show his cautious side. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would incur the public's anger. Thinking of this, the second elder added, "As far as I know, the Alchemist Guild headquarters has also received the Yao family's invitation. So if you really don't feel at ease, we can go with them. This way, the safety will also be greatly increased." How did you know that the Alchemist Guild would accept the invitation and head to the Yao clan's divine realm? The third elder asked helplessly. Wasn't this second elder taking things for granted? This is a matter of justice. How could the Alchemist Guild possibly refuse? The second elder said matter-of-factly. Hearing this, Mo Yen was a little speechless. He had overestimated the second elder's intelligence. However, since he had decided to go, he naturally couldn't undermine second elder's position. Therefore, he took the initiative to give second elder a way out and said, "Leave the matters of the Alchemist Guild to me. I'll go and negotiate with them. However, you should also send someone to the Yao family to check on the situation. If the infection is too serious, we have to consider the consequences." As soon as Mo Yen finished speaking, the second elder said impatiently, "I'll personally investigate the Yao family." The 8 great divine regions and some major forces had set up branches here, so it was very easy to go and ask. The second elder was very willing to do such a worry-free and labor-saving job, but in reality, he was just trying to cheat. The elders present were well aware that this was just a formality. If they were to ask the Yao family, how could they possibly tell them that their own divine realm was indeed still infected? How stupid would they be? In that case, let's end the meeting here. We'll discuss it later. After Mo Yen finished speaking, he left with Lung Xiaoyu and left the Craftsmen's Guild. The Blacksmiths' Guild headquarters and the Alchemists' Guild headquarters had always been inseparable and complemented each other, so their headquarters were naturally not too far away. After Mo Yen and Lung Xiaoyu left the Blacksmiths' Guild headquarters, they went straight to the Alchemists' Guild headquarters. When they arrived at the Alchemists' Guild headquarters, Mo Yen originally wanted to see Luyue, but the waiter told him that both Sir Luyue and Sir Xinhua were not around. In the end, it was Jiang Ning who received them with a bitter expression. Jiang Ning was precisely one of the 3 vice presidents of the Alchemists' Guild headquarters, and also the only vice president who was currently still overseeing the Alchemists' Guild headquarters. In the living room of the Alchemists' Guild headquarters, Mo Yen looked at the resentful Jiang Ning. Other than being speechless, he really didn't know what else to say. Who was this guy making an expression of a resentful wife for? Those who didn't know would think that she had bullied him. But in all honesty, he really didn't do anything. The look in Jiang Ning's eyes made Mo Yen feel extremely uneasy. Even Lung Xiaoyu felt her hair stand on end. This gaze was really too. Both master and disciple couldn't take it anymore. However, they still pretended to be calm, as if nothing had happened. After a long time, Jiang Ning glared at Lung Xiaoyu resentfully and finally opened his mouth to ask, "That Lung Ruoxue is your descendant?" Yes, I am." Even though Lung Xiaoyu didn't know what Jiang Ning meant by his question, she still answered him honestly. In reality, her relationship with Lung Ruoxue wasn't a secret anymore, whether it was in the Blacksmith Guild or the Alchemist Guild. As for the outside world, it wouldn't be long before they found out. Especially now that Lung Ruoxue's name was known throughout the firmament. All 8 generations of the Lung family's ancestors would probably be dug out. Chapter 2270. Am going on behalf of justice 3. Humph. You still dare to admit it. Hearing Lung Xiaoyu's affirmative answer, Jiang Ning's tone suddenly turned vicious. Jiang Ning was silent. If he didn't admit it, was he going to deny it? Xue was the pride of the Lung family. How could he not acknowledge her? However, Lung Xiaoyu had already decided that before she knew what Jiang Ning's intentions were, as long as he didn't point out her name, she would remain silent. Furthermore, he couldn't understand how Xue had offended Jiang Ning. The two of them didn't seem to have much interaction, right? However, Xue, that little girl, was someone who would not pay for angering people to death. So if the two of them really had a grudge, it seemed quite normal. With this in mind, he did not dare to interrupt. Even though he didn't say anything, Mo Yen was still interested in the conflict between Lung Ruoxue and Jiang Ning. It could be considered that there was a conflict between the two of them, right? As he thought of this, he suddenly asked with a curious look, "You know Xue?" In fact, he wanted to ask Jiang Ning about the conflict between them directly. However, he was afraid that Jiang Ning wouldn't tell him. So he had to ask in a more indirect way. "I don't know him," Jiang Ning said honestly. Mo Yen was speechless. "If you don't know her, why do you look like you're going to eat her up?" When Lung Xiaoyu heard his answer, she was speechless. It was rumored that the Alchemist Guild's vice president, Jiang Ning, never played by the rules, and it was indeed true. Otherwise, why would he have such a huge grudge against Xue before he even met her? However, Lung Xiaoyu was relieved to hear that Jiang Ning did not know Xue, who asked Jiang Ning to be publicly acknowledged as the most difficult to deal with out of the 3 vice presidents of the Alchemist Guild headquarters. Furthermore, this fellow was extremely willful. Even if he was refining pills for others, he would still choose the person. There was no way he could ask him to refine pills to save people he didn't like. So basically, in the Alchemist Guild headquarters, he was also the one the outside world didn't dare to provoke the most. However, she angered me. Looking at the silent master and disciple, Jiang Ning added, what did that girl do to piss you off? Hearing this, Emoyin quickly asked. Lung Xiaoyu also looked at him curiously. She seduced two of our Alchemist Guild's vice guild leaders. Since the end of the elite gathering, those two guys haven't returned, causing me to be like a dead dog, working like a horse in the Alchemist Guild. This was all her fault. That's why I won't let her off. I heard that she has a lot of good things. I must make her compensate for my mental loss. Otherwise, I'm not done with her. Jiang Ning replied fiercely, but his bright eyes were shining as if he had caught a long-term meal ticket, which made Mo Yen and his disciple even more speechless. This guy was probably not looking for trouble, but wanting Shui'er's good things? Moreover, your Alchemist Guild's main guild's vice president isn't a baby. They have hands and feet and are unwilling to return, so how can you blame it on Shui'er? Mo Yen couldn't help but mutter to himself. Lung Xiaoyu's impression of Jiang Ning had also changed greatly. In the past, he had always thought that Jiang Ning was hard to get close to, but now he understood that this guy was clearly a rascal. If he wanted to take Shui'er's baby, he should have just said so. He really despised Jiang Ning from the bottom of his heart. The master and disciple were secretly discussing this, which made Jiang Ning a little anxious. Why didn't the two of them react at all after he said so much and revealed his purpose? This wasn't normal. Although he really hoped that the two of them would stand on his side and speak up for him, he knew that the possibility was very small. However, they shouldn't be so unresponsive. As such, he did not know how to continue the topic. Actually, my clan's first elder and vice guild leader Lu Feng haven't returned for a long time. After a long while, under Jiang Ning's intense gaze, Mo Yen had no choice but to force himself to speak. Since that's the case, let's go find Lung Ruoxue to settle our scores. Let her compensate us for our mental losses, sigh. I've been so tired recently. Jiang Ning said pitifully. Exhausted? He was probably exhausted not because of his work at the Alchemist Guild headquarters, but because he wanted to earn money. As everyone knew, the Alchemist Guild headquarters was the richest of the few large guilds. After all, the gods didn't need to refine weapons every day, but they needed to use medicinal pills almost every day. Therefore, the Alchemist Guild headquarters had already earned a pot full of money from selling medicinal pills. Thanks, and Jiang Ning was definitely not after Shui'er's money. He was probably after her precious herbs. After all, alchemists were all fanatical about herbs. Even the extremely rich Jiang Ning couldn't avoid falling into a fanatical state for heavenly treasures. However, he was doing this all for the sake of refining pills. As a weapon refiner, Mo Yen understood Jiang Ning's feelings very well. When it came to ingredients, alchemists and weapon refiners were the same. Furthermore, in his opinion, if Shui'er could befriend Jiang Ning, it would not be a good thing for her. After all, Jiang Ning's status in the divine realm could not be underestimated. From a certain aspect, he was more powerful than Shenhua and Liyue. I heard that Shui'er is in the Yao family's divine realm. Our blacksmith guild is thinking of going there. Why don't we go together? Mo Yen asked after thinking for a while. This was also the purpose of his visit today. Sure, I'm also going to the Yao family's god domain. However, can you be sure that Lung Ruoxue is really there? Jiang Ning asked worriedly. Although he could contact Liyue and Shenhua, a few days ago, Shenhua had cut off all contact with them as soon as she said that she wanted to go into closed-door cultivation. As a result, he couldn't find her even if he wanted to. However, he didn't expect Mo Yen to come out of closed-door cultivation and bring Lung Ruoxue's ancestor with him. If that was the case, it should be easier for him to find Lung Ruoxue if he was with them. Furthermore, the reason he wanted to meet Lung Ruoxue wasn't solely for the herbs. He was also very interested in her as a person. After all, to be able to make several big shots of the Alchemist and Tool Masters Guild treat her differently at the same time, such a person was rare even in the immortal realm, let alone the fact that the other party was only a little girl. She was also the only one among the 3 vice guild leaders of the Alchemist Guild who had never seen her before. This was something that the prideful him would never allow. Hence, he had to use this opportunity to see Lung Ruoxue alive. I'm not sure, but I'll definitely go to the Yao family's divine realm. I also want to know what the Yao family's intentions are. What does that old man from the Yao family want to do with Shui? Mo Yin told the truth. After he came out of his closed-door cultivation, he did not immediately contact Lung Ruoxue and the others. Right now, he wanted to go to the Yao family to take a look. More importantly, he knew that the girl was not someone who liked to be passive and get beaten up. Hence, he was not worried about the safety of Lung Ruoxue and the others. What other intentions could there be? They definitely don't have any good intentions. Jiang Ning said with a look of disdain. A person who had been famous for so many years actually gathered to discuss a little girl's matter. He had no shame. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? In this regard, Jiang Ning looked down on his actions. However, there was no harm in listening. He then asked, as long as I follow you guys, I'll definitely be able to see Lung Ruoxue, right? And Mo Yin nodded helplessly. Hearing this, Jiang Ning was relieved. He smiled evilly and said, then I'll be with you guys for the time being. Hearing this, Lung Xiaoyu couldn't help but feel sad for Shui Er's herb that was about to pass away. However, she knew that Jiang Ning knew his limits and would not rob Shui Er too badly. However, he was so worried that he had forgotten that Lung Ruoxue was not someone who could be robbed so easily. In Lung Ruoxue's words, she was the only one who would rob others in this world. If others wanted to rob her, they had to see if she was happy or not. If she was happy, they could do whatever they wanted. If she was not happy, there was no way they could rob her. In contrast to Lung Xiaoyu's worry, Mo Yin was not worried at all. If Jiang Ning could snatch the herbs from Shui Er, then it would be his own ability. Therefore, he asked about the Yao family's poisoning situation without any worry. Only after Jiang Ning patted his chest and assured him that it was no big deal did Mo Yin feel at ease. In fact, Jiang Ning had been paying attention to the Yao family's poisoning incident. He knew that it was completely directed at the Yao family, so he wasn't worried that he and the others would be poisoned as well. After all, weren't the Qi, Yu and Fan families, who had been staying in the Yao family's divine domain, fine? Seeing that he had achieved his goal, Mo Yin quickly left the Alchemist Guild headquarters with Lung Xiaoyu. After returning to the Craftsman's Guild, Mo Yin immediately gathered all the elders, including the second elder who was a guest at the Yao family branch. After all the elders had arrived, Mo Yin made it clear that he was going to the Yao family's divine realm. The second elder couldn't help but be happy. After that, Mo Yin asked the elders to discuss the candidates to head to the Yao family's divine realm. In the end, it was decided that he would be the one to lead the team. He would bring Lung Xiaoyu, the second elder, and the others to the Yao family's divine realm. Initially, when they were discussing whether Lung Xiaoyu should stay or leave, the group led by second elder was strongly against it. The reason was that Lung Xiaoyu was Lung Ruoxue's ancestor, and their relationship was too close, so they had to avoid it. However, Lung Xiaoyu said, I'm going on behalf of justice. The second elder was rendered speechless. Just like that, Lung Xiaoyu followed her master to the Yao clan's divine realm without any hesitation. Some of the teams heading to the Yao family's divine territory were walking slowly, while others were rushing to the Yao family's divine territory. However, Lung Ruoxue, who was focused on developing the antidote for the 7-crystal flower, did not know about this. However, even if she knew, she wouldn't care too much. After all, in her opinion, she couldn't avoid what was to come. Since that was the case, she could only let nature take its course. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.